Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Wednesday night hobby hangout. Hopefully, this setup's a little bit better than last Wednesday. Spent a little bit of time since last Wednesday, just making sure my microphone's on there because I can't see it. There it is. I spent a little bit of time after last Wednesday. I bought a load of cables and stuff, so I've got space. I'm not falling over myself now. So I think we're all set for tonight. We've got a few in the chat tonight, so I'll say hello to a few faces. We've got Peter Nicholas who's in nice and early. Says he's painting some Chaos Space Marines tonight. Nice, mate. I haven't painted Chaos Space Marines. I haven't painted them since my oldest lads were probably about 8 or 9. One of those we used to collect them. David Jackson said he's excited for this one. His copy arrives tomorrow. It's nice when you get that email and it says it's on its way, isn't it? It's kind of like you get that it's like Christmas, like being a kid again. David Jackson says, are you saying that? Marcus is saying, Yarg, matey. Good evening, mate. How are you? Mark Wright says, evening all. Peter Cooman says, evening all too. Let me just quickly check. Looks and sounds good, Barry said. So I thought it would be better just check that one. Jonathan says, I have my game but need to clear some things before starting them. Miniatures are fantastic quality. I'll show you the minis in that soon. I've primed them all ready to go and kind of zenithal highlighted them ready for painting. I don't think the zenithal highlight will do anything the way I'm painting these, but it kind of helps me sort of see the bits and they look a little bit better on camera when I'm painting as well. But it is nice, mate. I've probably got other stuff I should be doing as well, but yeah, I'm just excited to paint something a bit different. Peter Kuhlman says, I'll be painting Spanish Garaquistas. He says, Garaquistas are volunteer lancers made up of Andalusian cattlemen. They get their name from the Charro hat. Yes, I just wanted to make Andy say Garaquista. A Garaquista. There you go, mate. I have said it. Johnson is doing iron, but he's added paint to appropriately pox focus this evening. Nice, mate. Nice. Christian, good evening, fella. How are you doing? Marcus is saying good afternoon, everyone. Ortega says he can't stay, but he's looking forward to seeing the painting in the rerun. Hello in the rerun, mate. Hope you're well. John says he's living vicariously this evening. Should be painting his own stuff, but DPD has lost the parcel. Oh dear, mate. I really hope that turns up very quickly for you, mate. Blizzard said hello and good day to everyone. Hello, fella. Tony Howell, good evening, sir. How are you? Stu McMurtry, hello to you as well, mate. Tony said he's made a good boy and he's hit that like button before they kicked off. We've got Palms again saying I hope everyone is well. Is it Re-Wisi or Re-Visi? Hello there, nice to see you. I don't think we've met before in the chat, so welcome to the live stream. Andrew saying just a little salty, you missed out on the game. Kickstarter says late pledge is open, but the game found site has everything locked up. I think the late pledge was open quite some time ago, mate. They probably just haven't updated it. However, if you go to Mythic Games site, they actually have a web store now where you can buy some of the Kickstarter copies that they still have available. So if you head over to the Mythic Games site, you should be able to buy them direct from them. It will go to retail later on, but the retail version will be slightly different as it'll have a little bit like less stuff in. We got things like, I think there was 15 champions in the Kickstarter pledge. I think the normal retail box will only have 6 in, for example. John says, evening all, I've got some Kings of War salamanders on the table. Nice, mate. I need to get my dwarves finished off as well. Andrew saying salt is a way of life. You just need to look, mate. You can still pick it up. Don't worry about that. You might even save some money on shipping. We paid a fortune. Barry is in as well. Hello, Barry Kleiber. How are you doing, mate? Ed Handley, hello to you as well. Yoakum, hello, mate. He's trying to finish some of his almost finished minis on his desk. Yeah, almost finished minis. I think that's the bane of most of our lives, mate, isn't it? Tony's in as well. He says, evening, dashed home from work so we could make this. Nice one, fella. Simon Dave's in. How's it going, mate? It's going very well. Thanks very much. Peter says, by the way, I hope you're all top-notch and faring well. I'm not bad, fella. I'm not bad at all. Peter says, killing it with the Spanish, mate. I haven't got a clue, mate. I just took my best stab at it. Made it sound like I knew what I was talking about. Busey's in as well. He says, is this another setup looking crisp? It's essentially the setup I had last week, but instead of everything being temporarily placed on stuff, I had the camera on the other side last week. I've moved it onto a tripod in the corner. The reason I couldn't put it here last week was because the cables didn't reach. So I've had to kind of spend some money on some new cables, like the HDMI cable and another power cable as well. So yeah, I've got that set up. However, let me just show you from a painting perspective. I have got a better kind of painting view now, so it means it's not over my shoulder. My head won't get in the way. I've actually got it in front of me now, but I'll show you at some point. I keep promising to do this studio tour, but I don't want to do it until, let me get there. I don't want to do it until I kind of have everything set up the way I want it. So I'll do that probably in the next week or so, I think. But yeah, I'll show you how I've got my camera set up here. But it means, if I just grab a brush, let me just grab a new one. It just means that when I'm sitting here, I can paint quite nicely. I've got a screen in front of me I can keep an eye on. So yeah, it should be nice. Stuart Hayes says, evening guys and gals. Good evening, Stu. How are you doing? Andy, is it Bruton? I think it's Bruton. Apologies if I've made that. Apologies if I've butchered that, I should say. He says, hi mate, first time viewer here, hoping to get the bug to get back into painting. Love to see people sharing their passion. Thank you very much, mate. I'm going to be trying to paint this as simply as possible. There's going to be no fancy kind of like sort of techniques and stuff. For folks that kind of know me, I'm a decent painter. I'm all right. I kind of know my way around, but I am going to be trying to kind of do anything too technical. So if you're just trying to get your foot back in the door again, these might help you to kind of just think, you know what, I can do that. I can do that. Andrew saying, I was being little about salt being a way of life. Testing scale inhibitors on produced water for work this afternoon. Right, I see what you mean now, mate. Busey saying, I think it's because Andy has it set up on 1280p and 100 frames per second. I've got it's on 1080 actually, mate. I didn't set it to 4K or anything like that, but it is on I think it's on 100. Is it on? It's on 50 FPS, I think it is, mate. So it should be nice and crisp anyway. Everyone's saying hello to Andy there as well. Nice to see you folks welcoming in the new people as well. That's always nice. John Hedges says, painting view is fab. Nice one. Just no fancy pants here. Probably saying it's because it's blowing a goddamn gale outside, blowing my internet away. Yeah, it is pretty bad, mate. The weather here as well. He's saying his internet is playing up. Right, okay, mate. I missed that bit there. Oh, that must have jumped well ahead there. I seem to have skipped loads there. Where are we up to there? We've got Bjorn Bork. Nice to see you, Bjorn. We've got Ed Hanley, he's got Castell and Crow and the Sisters of Battle. I remember painting Castell and Crow quite some time ago. Mark Barracloth in as well. Yoakum saying good evening. That was where I managed to jump to there before, didn't I? Vijay saying he's going to base his blitzball players. Right, let's just crack on. We'll get straight on with the painting. So tonight I'm going to be painting. For those that don't know, Super Fantasy Brawl is kind of essentially it's a kind of arena combat type game. Let me just zoom out a little bit, and I'll show you some of the other models. So we have these are. In fact, let me get them all out, and you can have a look at these. These are the models that come with the game, and I'll put another model beside them just for kind of scale purposes, so you can kind of see the size of these things. But yeah, they really, really are nice quality. These are the kind of things that even if you don't intend to ever play the game, or you're just a bit of a painter, they're so nice just to have something different to paint. We've got these guys as well. So like I say, you get about, I think it was 15 of these I got in the Kickstarter. So, and I was kind of toying with which one to paint tonight, and I just thought, you know what it is, I'm going to go with Goldar, who is the pirate, of the Scourge of the Several Seas, I think he's called. But yeah, this is one of my favourites actually, but I wanted to kind of give this one a bit of thought. This one is called Nevermore. Let me just zoom into this one a little bit. You can kind of see some of the... And these all come single piece. They're all single piece plastics. You can see there, they're just plastic minis. But yeah, there's some nice detail to these. I mean, if I show you the one we're painting tonight, this is Goldar. And all I've done is prime these black with Vallejo Surface Primer. And then I bought some of that after everyone talking about it last week. I bought some of this stuff. This Dale Rowney ink, acrylic ink. So that's what I've kind of highlighted them. That's what I've zenithal sort of highlighted them with. But yeah, there's just some nice details to these minis. He's got his kind of the anchor there for his left hand coming around. And if I put these next to, let's say, let me get a Necron, which is kind of like my standard. There's one of the Necrons there, just to give you an idea. scale for these things and stuff. If I put that, let me zoom out a touch. If I put that Necron in there amongst them, you can kind of see the scale of these things. So sort of some of these bigger ones here, just so you can see them. And that it gives you an idea of the size. Anyway, there's more in there as well. We've got like things like there's this kind of like samurai tiger. We've got this kind of like sort of almost some kind of bony werewolf type thing. So yeah, there's some particularly nice minis in there. Let me just move these out of the way now, and we'll get on with what we're actually painting tonight. Let me just quickly catch up with the chat there while I'm sorting these out. There's a good quote there, Peter. Newbies are friends in the making. I like that, mate. I like that. Friends in the making. That's what we need in this current climate. Friends in the making. Tiberius is in as well. Hello, fella. He's in. Are we gadgies? Peter says the one with the Inca style sword. Is he a Birdman? The Inca style sword. I think this one. Where have I just put him? If you mean this fella here, I think he's like an ogre or an orc or something, mate. If this is the one that we're talking about, I think it was that one. So let me put that one back away, and we'll crack on with Goldar now. VGC nice minis. Simon Davis saying, what type of game is this? It's essentially, it's kind of like an arena combat. If you think about like kind of God tier, something like sort of Shadespire, Warhammer Underworlds, you're not a million miles away with it. But there's no dice in this game. There's no deck building. There's no. You basically just pick 3 of those models. They each come with 6 cards. You put all of those 3 sets of 6 cards together. That gets you your 18 card deck. You shuffle them and basically you play them as they come out into your hand. And you essentially score points by, if you're familiar with Blitzball, how you score points for the kind of like the scenario trackers moving along, the objective tracker moving along. You score points like that, or you score points with taking out opposing champions, and then the champions just come back again as well. It's a really, really cool game. I played quite a lot of it when it was first getting ready to go on Kickstarter. Yeah, tactical brawler with lots of placement shenanigans. Yes, people kind of just giving a bit of an update there. Horrid Dave says, how can I achieve a crystal ball finish on some wizards? The best way to do it, mate, darker at the bottom, lighter, or actually sometimes you go darker at the top, lighter at the bottom, and gloss varnish, mate, is your friend. Dave says, Dale Rowney acrylic ink artist inks are for pros. I don't know if Liquitex does an even white or white with their titanium white. I think I looked for Liquitex stuff, mate, but I went to just Hobbycraft to pick these ones up today. They didn't have any Liquitex stuff. Marcus says, looks a little like World of Warcraft. They've got that feel about them, mate. Originally, the game, when it was designed, the designer of the game was trying to make a League of Legends board game, basically, and got the game to a point where he couldn't get the license for it, didn't really know exactly where to go with it. And I think what happened was he showed the game off, and Mythic said that they would buy the game, and they've done a little bit of update to artwork and stuff like that. But originally, I think if you look at these now, you can kind of see that League of Legends inspired kind of strange mix of characters. So yeah, that's the thing, mate. Mark saying, you plan on painting the tokens? I've seen a few painted ones. Yeah, I probably will at some point, mate. Mark is saying, looks like an Oni. John Hedges says, I'm stuck with Citadel paints. Being colourblind, I can't live without the app for choosing highlights. I use mainly Citadel paints, mate. I've got a few P3 ones you can see here. I've got the odd kind of spot of things, but vast majority of everything else I've got here is all GW stuff, Citadel stuff. Davidson, just out of interest, did you get those P3 paints from? They're not easy to find in Europe. I've had them quite some time, mate. What's it called? Element Games sell them. However, I've bought these when I used to play War Machine and stuff. You used to get like kind of colour packs for particular armies, and I just bought them from there, mate. But yeah, Element Games definitely sell them. VG saying, how was your Blitzball game with Lou go? Did you film it? We didn't film it, mate, no, but I won by about 2 points, but it did go all the way down to the end of the game. It wasn't, Lou was kind of focusing on trying to score touchdowns, so she scored a couple of touchdowns, where I was focusing on the cards, mate, to be fair. James Brazen, good evening, mate. Simon Davis said, I like a P3 for skin tones. they're quite nice. They're kind of like nicely thinned down, the P3 stuff. VG says he got a tub of Liquitex titanium white heavy body acrylic a couple of days ago. Sam Lenz recommended it as possibly the best white on the market. Yeah, the Liquitex stuff's meant to be quite nice made, but it was just I wanted to go and literally pick some off the shelf, and my options were a bit limited today. So anyway, let's get some paint on this model. Now the model itself, if I kind of show you some artwork for it. Sorry, just banging the microphone there. Let me get the images up here. So this is the artwork basically for the miniature. This is what's on the card for it. This is quality, isn't it? This is like sort of multi-screen. This is not how you do multi-screen. I'm just showing you because it's the easiest way. But like, he's kind of purple and gold. And I thought, I don't think I'm going to do purple for him. I was torn between going blue and gold and white, kind of in honor of my LA Rams, or I was torn about going like red, which feels more kind of piratey red and gold, a bit more rich looking. So I think we're going to go red and gold with this one. Vijay says, nice, sounds like a great tight game. Looking forward to tabletoping it with you again. Yes, mate, 100%. I forgot to get back to you about setting up a date. We will definitely sort that though. Let me just shake that. Ed saying, have you tried Scale Colour Artist? I've never tried any of the Scale Colour paints, mate. I've got a few paints here that were sent to me in, like, you know, when you get those like model box things, like the kind of, I can't remember what they're called now, you know, like this sort of surprise box things. I've got some models stuff here that I've not used yet. So I've got, let me clear these off and I'll show you what I've got this in-store sort of metallics, this solar yellow that I've not tried yet. I'll have to try that at some point. Also from the same brand, I've got marine blue, which is an in-store metallic as well. I also got a couple of these in there. You can see they've been lying on their sides. This is a watercolor, one code violet. Let me just shake out a little bit. These are nice actually. They've got nice tops on them, which kind of like the push down tops with nice little nozzles on them, and they've also got what they call agitators inside them as well. I think you can hear that. Yes, mate. And then we've also got a magenta one there, highly opaque magenta, and I've got like these foundry paints as well. So I've got a few different types to really try out, but yeah, I've never really played those ones. So yes, I think we're going to go with the red, mate. Mark's in LA Rams. You want him to lose games? LA Rams are doing well, thank you very much, mate. We've only lost one game this season. I think we're either 4-1 or 5-1. I can't remember now. Is it week 5 or week 6? I think we're 5. We might be 5-1. Pomsy saying, have we congratulated Andy on his 1 million views? I don't think anybody has yet, mate. Yes, I clicked over 1 million views today on the channel, which doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. But for me, it's a bit of a double achievement for me, because one thing is, it's like a million of anything is really, really nice. So I'm over the moon with achieving 1 million views. But for me, it sort of getting views is a bit more in my control rather than getting subscribers. Like, subscribers is what people talk about, but I can't force people to subscribe, and people will subscribe, people will unsubscribe depending upon what content I'm doing. But if somebody views a video, they view a video, and that view stays there, if you like. So I can kind of control the views by just keep making videos basically, and by getting to 1 million views, that for me just kind of shows my consistency. That basically I've been going almost 4 years, and I was trying to work it out today. I think other than when I've been on holiday for a couple of weeks, like if I've been away for a week, I tend to be able to kind of set something up to cover the backlog while I'm gone, if you like. But if I'm away for a couple of weeks, I normally don't have the time, or haven't in the past had the time to kind of set the videos ahead of time. So yeah, I've kind of just been quite consistent. So that to me, kind of, it's like a nice personal achievement, really. So yeah, thank you very much, mate. John's saying, John Estel says red, white with a bit of gold. The guy looks like Niall Quinn. John's saying blue and gold for Durham Wasps, a disbanded hockey team. I remember Durham Wasps, mate. And Dave said he's not got watercolour, but he's got watercolour, but too chicken to use them. They said you shouldn't water them down. I don't think I've ever used them, mate. Arnold DeGans, good evening, sir. Hello, mate. How are you? I've just saw you've just donated there as well. Thank you very much, mate. It says 1 million presents. Thanks. David says 1 million views is more than Channel 5 gets in 5 months. To be honest, mate, I mean, obviously the channel's been going nearly 4 years, but when I first started out, I wasn't really getting any views. So let me start getting some paint on here anyway. I wasn't really getting many views when I first started out, but so the vast majority of the views have kind of come in the last couple of years, really. So it's kind of just it's nice to see that. Well, one, people watch, which is always nice, but just the fact, like, I've stuck at it. I've kept going, like 4 years of just consistently making content and uploading stuff, and that kind of means more to me. The subscriber numbers, whilst they're nice, are just kind of like a consequence of something. I can't physically go around and force people to subscribe. That's entirely in their hands. But I can get views by consistently making videos, really. So yeah, it's been a nice little milestone to get by. Marcus says, I got my Terrorgeist, so light up. Vijay says, congratulations on $1 million. Yeah, we were just talking in the Patreon group about how much money you make for 1 million views, and I think people would be surprised. You don't make a lot of money from ad revenue in 1 million views, which is why things like Patreon and affiliate links and selling T-shirts and that kind of stuff is what I need to do to make this worthwhile. But yeah. I certainly wouldn't be doing this full time if I relied upon ad revenue. That's for sure, and hence why a lot of companies sort of do paid product stuff like that. So, Tony says, I'm thinking of going primarily contrast on the minis. It seems to be they'll go well together. I had considered going with the contrast paints, mate. To be honest, I'm sure they would go well because I think it suits that kind of almost cartoony aesthetic to it. So I think contrast probably would go quite well, but for whatever reason I've decided to pick up the other paint, the normal paint, and just go with it. So we will be using contrast paints on them at some point. So yeah, we'll get them. The only thing I would say is I wish that I wish I could kind of pull these apart a little bit. There's certain bits I would have liked to have got at without, like for example this anchor coming across his back. I would have liked to have been able to get into that back bit a little bit better, but it doesn't matter. I'll put red on it and tie it up afterwards, essentially. VJ is doing his Dr. Evil impression. 1 million. Scott Longworth, good evening, homies. How are you doing, Mr. Longworth? I hope you are fitting well, sir. John said, me too, Tony. Zenithal undercoat and contrast should do the job. Yeah, like I say, I did. I kind of planned on doing that, and for whatever reason, I've already started now. But what I would say, there's some quite big flat areas on some of them, which might not help with the contrast. But there's a lot of detail as well. So I'm just trying to get the brush into that little bit there, and then we'll tidy up the overspill on the anchor and stuff when we paint that. Let's have a look. Tony says, don't YouTube send you a plaque for 1 million views? Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, nowhere near that, mate. The first time you get a plaque is when you get to 100,000 subscribers. You don't get any plaques for the number of views. It's just subscriber numbers, which is why everybody kind of sort of obsesses over subscribers. Basically, you could have 1 million subscribers and only have 1 million views, or you could have 10 subscribers and have 10 million views if nobody decided to click the subscribe button. So subscribers is not really a measure of success, if you like, but unfortunately that seems to be the thing. It's a bit of what I would call like a vanity number. It's the thing that everybody seems to want to talk about when they see how big their channel is. But actually, it means very little in the grand scheme of things. So no, you don't get anything made for 1 million views, other than the pat on the back that you give yourself. But yeah, it's like that to me is a huge number. When I first started making videos almost 4 years ago, and like if a video got like 100 views or something like that, I was absolutely blown away. Like I never dreamed I'd still be doing this 4 years later, and this still be my full-time job and like 1 million views and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I kind of celebrate in just celebrate in isolation like with myself. Like I'm having a celebratory glass of orange juice tonight. Marcus is saying, you call us homies, most of us are stuck at home, we're all friends. Thomas is saying, have you looked at Rumble Slam? Oh, I have, mate. I've done a review of Rumble Slam on my channel, mate. It's a cool little game. It doesn't get any kind of any push from TT Combat, who own the game randomly. They tend not to talk about it at all, even though they keep releasing new stuff for it. They hardly tell anybody about it. But yeah, it's a fun game, mate. It's a fun game. If you're into wrestling, it is certainly the best wrestling game from a miniatures point of view that's out there. I don't even know if there's any others, but it's certainly the most kind of popular. And it's nice that it's kind of like fantasy as well. That it makes it that little bit more unusual. Tony saying, yep, this brushing on primer isn't working. I have to clear the cave out tomorrow and airbrush the primer on. Yeah, the weather is certainly not the kind of weather for going out with a spray can, mate, is it? That's for sure. Yeah, get the airbrush out, mate. I airbrush all my primer stuff. You don't need any skills to be airbrushing a primer on, mate. It goes on thin enough that you won't really do any. You can't really mess it up, basically. I just prime straight out the bottle as well. I use this stuff. Let me just grab a bottle of it. I just use this Vallejo surface primer. I put it straight in from the bottle, and that's it. That's what I use. Marcus is saying, have you seen the movie Jane Silent Bob Strikes Back? You can totally go around and force people to do stuff. Yeah, I'm sure I can. I don't think I'd make myself particularly popular doing it though. To be honest, people get annoyed enough if you post links to videos in Facebook groups and stuff. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing myself any favors by going around and trying to force people to subscribe to my channel. My next little personal goal, for all it's kind of out of my control, is to get to 10,000 subs. Like after that, I honestly don't really care how many subs I get after that. It's just when I kind of started out, 10,000 subscribers felt like somewhere I would never get to. So yeah, that's my own little kind of personal goal. But you all know, I mean, those folks that come in here quite often. This channel's kind of future isn't based upon the number of subscribers I've got. It's about creating kind of content that is community focused. It focuses on the number of different games that are out there. So yeah, subscribers and views really are just they're just what kind of as long as the people kind of who kind of fund the channel, if you like, the Patreons and that sort of stuff, the people who donate and stuff, if they're liking the content, then that's all that really matters. So yeah, so we'll crack on with this little pirate. I've also painted up the statues for this as well. If I remember, I'll grab them out of the box and I'll show you them later on. And I recorded that whole process as well. So the idea being that it was meant to be a nice, simple process that absolutely anybody, even if you've never painted a miniature before, you'll be able to follow my process for painting up the statues. James is saying, greetings all, killing a few minutes as work finishes up. Hopefully some hobby later. Nice one, fella. Nice one. I hope work's been kind to you today. Hope it wasn't too stressful. Right, I think we'll get a smaller brush for this bit. Scott saying, Simon Davis saying, Fish Terror Red Contrast is my new favourite paint. Works great for reds over Zenithal. It's a really nice red actually, mate. It's just got like loads of just colour pigment to it. Excuse me while I have a quick drink. Right, let's get a slightly smaller brush. What's this one? Which one I'll do? So, Mark was asking me about kind of talking about what kind of colours and what kind of brushes I was using. I was there using a size 2 brush. This was an Artis Opus Series S size 2, and I'm now using a Winsor & Newton Series 7 size 0. just to do some smaller ones. I would use my Artis Opus one, but this is just the first one I've picked up. And paint wise, I'm using Mephiston Red from the Citadel range. Get some paint in here. Scott saying he's just painting some 3D printed Vikings using contrast paints and enjoying a cider. Do you know what it is, mate? I had September off the booze. I never had any drink at all in September. Part of me, I'm trying to get my healthy lifestyle back on track. And since then, I've kind of stuck to it, and I think I've had, since the end of September, I think I've had maybe a glass of wine with a meal in the house with my wife. I haven't even fancied kind of like having a beer. It's weird. After having a month off, I've completely kind of lost the urge to sort of drink in the house. And it's interesting because I'd love to go to the pub with my mates, but I'm sure as you know, Scott, obviously, and the folks in the UK and stuff, the Northeast have kind of some stricter lockdown regulations at the moment, so I can't go to the pub with my mate at the minute. We can't go to each other's houses, so yeah, I've just not been drinking, mate. I've got a full crate of Punk IPA in a cupboard in the kitchen. I've purposefully not even put them in the fridge, so I wasn't tempted last month when I was having a month off. Yeah. Where are we at? Peter saying that hand sculpted versus computer sculpted. When sculpted by hand, a brush can reach where sculpting tool can. With 3D sculpting, not so much. I think it depends, mate. If they're sculpting it in parts, which these are. I mean, these are multiple parts, but they just come pre-assembled. So, for example, I can see where the join is, where that anchor comes out of there, and that anchor is in one piece. And I can see there's a join there, I think, which looks like where the arm, or either at the hand there where the weapon is, or at the kind of like the elbow there. So it was obviously made in multiple pieces and then assembled in the factory in China where they were produced. But yeah, just with it being a single piece mini, if I didn't even try. I know sometimes you can kind of put them in the freezer, and if they've used like super glue type stuff, you can sometimes break them apart again. But to be honest, I'm not too worried about doing super kind of super nice jobs on these. I want to make them look decent, but to be honest, I just want to get them done. I want to be able to play the game with them painted. I think playing the game with painted minis just adds something to it. I mean, to be honest, like for example, even if you just like you could in theory do what I've done and just stop here, like put a little bit of colour on each one. Like I've often thought about doing something like that for kind of for like board game type pieces. Just try something a little bit different. Just zenithal prime them, and then pick out a couple of colours. Might be nice. Peter says I use Artist Gesso, available from Action. What is Artist Gesso made? I thought Gesso was something that they used to kind of prepare the canvas with. Is that right? I've got no idea if I'm correct or not, but I thought that's what it was. Let me just where were we up to there? Marcus saying, realised yesterday when going through old gaming table video was the one customer asked me to build last year, so I actually had known about your videos longer than I realised. There you go, mate. See? I won't even charge you for the plans. Right. John saying, yeah, still pretty cool to have 12 years worth of viewing time. Yeah, I mean, that's those kind of numbers. It's just so hard to kind of get your head round. Like we were just saying again in the people on chat earlier on, like in last month in September, I think I had like 135 or 140 days of watch time. So basically, over a 30-day period, there was 140 days worth of viewing time. Those kind of numbers are really hard just to get my head around how this is kind of growing. And bearing in mind, I am not a big channel. You know that there's much bigger channels than me. Their numbers must be sort of astronomical. But yeah, I don't want to compare myself to anybody else. I'm happy just doing my own thing. Mark says, did you have a wobble base on one? I think it was the destruction statue. I think all three of mine are not perfectly flat, mate. But it's absolutely minuscule. It's tiny. I'd either kind of just sort of rub them on a bit of sandpaper, or I might even be able to get it with just a bit of hot, like steam to it or something like that to flatten them out. It's minuscule. I saw a few people's pictures on Facebook and stuff where they've had some quite severe wobbles on them, but mine was nothing worth worrying about. By the time I put them on the neoprene mat, I think that seemed to kind of take up any imbalance in them just by being on that softer mat. Where are we? Tim Kelly says, hey Andy and all, hope you're good. Painting some more Death Guard tonight. I don't think I've seen your Death Guard, Tim, have I? Or have I? Have I just completely confused them with somebody else's? I've seen a few people painting Death Guard recently. I might have confused yours, mate, with somebody else's. Where are we up to there? Barry saying, I don't drink anymore, but I don't drink any less either. I mean, to be honest, mate, I do like a nice beer, and I do like a nice wine, to be fair. But I like a nice whiskey as well. But at the minute, like, it just feels like drinking in the house now after having some time off. I don't feel like I've got anything to kind of like I would not say celebrate so much, but like the way things are at the minute, like I think the last thing I need to be doing is drinking. I might end up drinking myself into a dark hole, mate, to be honest. The way the world is at the moment. But no, so I've lost a stack of weight, so it's obviously the health benefits are kind of there to see from it. But yeah, I'm not really getting the urge. Basically, is what's unusual. And bearing in mind, I've worked in kind of beers, wines, and spirits for quite a big chunk of my life as well. So it's not like it's not like I haven't had it around me all the time. So yeah, I guess it was for canvas, but it's self-leveling, so great as an undercoat if you can slap it on. Sounds like they're not something I'd want to do across a miniature, mate. It's just slapping it on. But if you use it, mate, I assume it mustn't be as bad as it sounds from that description. Let's see if we can get around the back here. Mark says, I think the hardest thing for me right now is missing out on going to the Cherry Festival with parents this year and bringing home 5 or 6 gallons of non-alcoholic cherry cider. Yeah, I think I'm really missing. Obviously, like from a sort of hobby perspective, I'm missing kind of getting out and meeting people, and like I love going to conventions and kind of meeting up with people that I only ever chat with here on the live stream. Like the amount of people that I've kind of met up with over time is just phenomenal. Like Tim, who's in the chat tonight, Tony meeting up at kind of like the Weekender and UK Games Expo, Peter as well meeting up, just alongside many others as well, plus those that I plan to meet up with and have yet to have the chance. So I'm missing that kind of stuff. But yeah, from a family perspective, I'm kind of really missing like a nice foreign holiday, like a bit of sunshine and kind of just time away with the family and not worrying about kind of the stresses of everyday life and things. I'm kind of missing that stuff at the minute. It's not quite the same kind of holidaying in the UK. So yeah, getting on a plane and going abroad, I've kind of missed that stuff. So there's a basic kind of red on there. Looks a little bit patchy at the minute, but I think we'll tidy that one up as we go. I do want to kind of see if I've missed anything, so I'm going to reference that picture just to see if there's any bits that I should be painting that I haven't. So his trousers a little bit maybe. I think there's a picture of his back as well, so I'll be able to see. I think they've kind of painted this arm piece here as well, so we'll do that, I think. Mark saying next month will be the local Renaissance Fair, but that's being cancelled as well. Yeah, everything's being cancelled, mate. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way of the world at the moment. Dave saying, because I kept hearing gesso could be used as a pouring medium, I had good gesso at identifying its purpose. Dave saying, can't wait. Hello, David Vaughan, by the way. Nice to see you. Says, can't wait for his. Supposed to come tomorrow. I was super surprised with how fast it arrived, like from getting the notification. So on Friday night last week, it must have been about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Excuse me. I was sitting just watching TV with my wife, and I got an email basically to say that it had shipped, and it was in where was it again? I forget now, but wherever it was shipping from in mainland Europe, it was there. And so I thought, oh well, by the end of next week, I should probably get it. And then I think by Saturday morning, it was like, right, it's arrived in the UK, it's on its way up to Newcastle, to the DPD office. And I actually thought there was a possibility. I thought I might actually got it on Sunday, but yeah, it arrived Monday morning. So yeah, I've had it a couple of days. I was really surprised with just how fast, from the actual notice of it's being shipped, how quickly it came. Strasbourg, that's a 1 mark. Thank you very much, mate. Andrew says, so we have your opinion on what's the best GW rule set. What, in your opinion, is the worst? Well, bearing in mind I haven't played every single one to say which one is the worst. I've kind of got mixed feelings, really, because like I'm not a big fan of Blood Bowl at all. But I couldn't say it's a bad rule set. It's not a fun experience for me. But that doesn't mean the rules are bad. It doesn't mean it's kind of unplayable or anything like that. I find Necromunda quite rules heavy. But I wouldn't say it was a bad rule set as such. I would say from what I've actually tried, for me, it would probably be Warhammer Fantasy, if I'm honest. And the reason I say that is I just find that it was the least fun of everything I've tried, in terms of just being overly complex. And it might just be as a new player, and I'm speaking as somebody that kind of did not play probably more than 2 games of Warhammer Fantasy or something like that, like just kind of testing it out with or kind of like trying to join in with some people at a local club. It was just the sheer fact that all I ever felt we were doing, and I've said this loads of times, but just the sheer fact that all I felt we were doing was looking in rule books for stuff. That just didn't seem fun to me. Peter saying Lost Patrol. I never played Lost Patrol. The problem is with those kind of games, things like Lost Patrol, is they were designed to sell like minis. They were never really designed to be a game as such. So things like the is it Gangs of Kimura or whatever it's called, which was the Flyers game. That was like a really kind of simple rule set. You had Speed Freaks as well not too long ago. Like those were the kind of games that felt like an afterthought. Like they were purely there just to kind of sell some models. And to be fair, Go Chosen was another one of those games. However, because it was written by a certain Mr. James Hewitt, there just seemed to be a bit more love and attention went into it than probably, to be fair, than probably GW actually asked for. So, yeah, it's funny those kind of, that was back in the day where GW really were about just shoveling in minis into a boxed game, where people would buy the game, throw the game away, and just take the minis out because it was cheaper. Yeah, VG. Alan Moore, good evening, mate. How are you doing? Nice to see you. VG said he was due on his annual trip in May. Suffice to say, he's going stir crazy. I'm certainly starting to feel a bit stir crazy now. Like I've said this a few times now, but like now I'm kind of doing this job full time and I'm working on my own. So I'm at home a lot. I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm not meeting people. I'm not talking to people like on the telephone. It's not like I'm having like kind of like business meetings or anything. Like I'm emailing people and stuff like that, trying to set up content and things, but it's not quite the same as actually having like a face-to-face meeting or something, or even a phone call. So yeah, I'm feeling a bit down in the dumps about it, but I'm just trying to make the best of the situation I've got really at the minute. Warhammer Fantasy Peter's face. It wasn't a game for me, mate. It was a game that was designed in and of its time, really, and that's the problem. I think is that games have moved on a lot, and the people that love Warhammer Fantasy will have grown up playing Warhammer Fantasy, and at the time there probably wasn't a lot of other things to actually play, so they would have grown up loving Warhammer Fantasy. I didn't grow up loving Warhammer Fantasy. I wasn't really a fantasy fan at the time. It's something I've played more recently, fantasy games. So I just found it just wasn't my cup of tea at all. Peter saying, Ed saying Dark Future was pretty questionable. I don't think I ever played Dark Future, mate. Gangs of Komori, yeah, that was another one of those games that basically people bought just to buy a load of models for the inside, just to get the models cheap. Seriously, I bet no one ever played Speed Freaks. I think I bet you could probably count on one hand how many people even tried it. They just bought it for the model again. Right, what do I want to do with this now? I think what I'm going to do is... Oh, there's a bit more red that I haven't painted there. Peter says, VGC has not played Warhammer Fantasy Battle in years, but I definitely feel like Kings of War is a superior rank and flank. Warhammer Fantasy Battle was too bloated. Yeah, bloat is definitely the feeling that I got from it, mate. There was too much of looking up kind of rules on multiple pages, but lots of people loved it. I'm not dissing the game. I'm not saying it was a bad game. I'm saying that for me, for the type of games that I like to play, it just wasn't the right game for me. And that's the thing, is that everybody has personal opinions. What was interesting is the video I did the other day or yesterday even about Warcry being the best rule set. It's amazing the absolutely kind of like polar opposite replies I've been getting in the chat comments, basically in the replies to the video. People saying couldn't agree more, you're absolutely bang on with it, and then other people saying I couldn't disagree more, you're so wrong. I love those kind of videos because there are no right and wrong answers. Everybody's got an opinion, but it's opinions that bring those kind of videos to life. People see those titles. And it's not clickbait. Like it really is my opinion. I honestly still feel that Warcry is that best game. But those kind of opinions really do just drive people to either watch it and give their opinion, or kind of like to agree with you or to completely disagree. I did one quite a while ago about AOS versus Warhammer Fantasy, and essentially it was a video about like, just because Warhammer Fantasy's gone now, you shouldn't kind of like give the players of AOS a hard time, and the players of AOS shouldn't give the Warhammer Fantasy players a hard time. Really, it was more of a kind of like live and let live, let people play the game that they enjoy. But I don't think I've ever had a video that has such polar opposite opinions on it. It's my most disliked video with equal likes and dislikes on it. I find that really fascinating. So I just need to paint a bit more just at the back there as well. Where are we at? Let me just scroll back a little bit. I think here's the perfect thing coming to say. Andrew says it's aeronautica for me. Those rules are poorly written. Fantasy was bad too, but after game 2 or 3, you were only looking at your own army book. But that's the thing though. You were still having to look at your own army book. Like, for me, a game you shouldn't have to be looking at a book like when you're playing it. Basically, the rules should be manageable enough that you can learn the rules. Which is why it was one of the reasons I mentioned about why I love Warcry. You shouldn't have to be delving in it. Like the amount of board games. There are very few board games where you have to keep going back and reading the rules. Like board games are designed to just be like it might take you a couple of goes, but then you understand the rules and you can just play the game. That's the whole point of board games. Like I don't know why we, like, as miniature gamers, we just accept the fact that there will be so much complexity in a game that you will never be able to remember everything. There'll always be something that you have to go back to the rule book for, and we seem to think that complexity, as a kind of I'm generalizing here, but as a big group of gamers, there seems to be an opinion that complexity equals kind of like skilled rules writing or makes a better game. In my personal opinion, is that's just not the case. There are certain people who write rules that I just think understand that sweet spot between kind of options, interesting mechanics, and simplistic approaches. Yeah, Mark saying Dark Future was an amazing game, but then Jet Set Willy had the best graphics. Yeah, it's all about those rose tinted glasses, mate, isn't it? VG saying he's got both Gangster Kimura and Speed Freaks. Never played the rules, bought the boxes for the minis. Yeah. Mark says, I think Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition was mostly fine if you and your opponent stayed to the main rulebook, and their codex, bringing the White Dwarf and other options, made the game long and cheesy. It's one of the things with a lot of Games Workshop games is that kind of creep of rules dotted around in 10 different places, unfortunately. Alan saying, played Speed Freaks once and not impressed. I think it's like I said before, mate, I think it's another one of those games where the whole point of it was not to was not really to like they never do anything, like they never expand on those particular games, do they? It's just a case of that's it really. That's the game. Get on with it. Right, I'm going to now go with some Balthazar Gold, and I'm going to kind of do all of the gold trim now, I think. Peter saying, I believe if you like Mordheim, you kind of liked Warhammer Fantasy, I suppose. I think it's a bit like Mordheim was just... It was essentially Warhammer Fantasy sort of skirmishy type... How can I kind of phrase it? It was Necromunda for Warhammer Fantasy fans, wasn't it, really? It's kind of the gist of it, really, the way I would see it. But again, like Necromunda is one of those games that has a lot of complexity to it. There's a lot of moving parts. Krabby's in as well. Good evening, mate. How are you doing? Tim says Dark Future had superb minis and cars, but Car Wars and Battle Cars rules were tons better. I'd imagine that GW probably didn't mind if you still bought their cars to use with somebody else's rules. Krabby says, no idea why I'm getting any notifications for your channel anymore. It's because you don't watch my videos, mate. That's why. Essentially, what happens is if you don't watch the videos, it stops giving you notifications. Sorry, mate. That's the reason. Jim says my 2-year-old. Oh, there it is. Where was that one? My 2-year-old really wants some of Daddy's models in his bedroom, so Necron Warrior and a BlackJack Marine now live next to a piggy bank and a packet of wet wipes. Nice one, mate. Ed saying FFG's Rune Wars is the best rank and flank I've ever played. Has anybody played Conquest by Parabellum? The reason I ask is they sent me a starter box for it a while ago, and it took me ages to build it up, and I've just never actually got around to getting the chance to give the game a try yet. But I've heard it's basically, if you like Warhammer Fantasy, you'll love Conquest, because it's essentially Warhammer Fantasy but with alternating activations. And it was written by Alessio Cavatore. So there's bound to be some kind of some parallels drawn with it. Some kind of Metal Father Christmas. I know what you mean, mate. There's a lot of white on there at the minute. Yeah, so, and obviously the guys on Tabletop are doing some kind of like slow growth thing that's obviously being sponsored by Parabellum. So it's getting a bit of coverage at the minute, but I just wondered if anybody had actually played it. I've had a demo of it before, and it was one of those games where it felt like it did certain things just for the sake of being different, which is things like rolling low instead of rolling high, and that kind of stuff. But again, I played a very, very quick intro demo just to try it out, really. So it's something at some point I'd like to come back to. And I saw somebody had posted in our Facebook group yesterday, I think Parabellum are releasing kind of skirmish rules. So the game basically comes with individual minis that go into trays. A little bit like kind of Song of Ice and Fire, if you're familiar with that stuff. So it goes into trays like that. But apparently the skirmish rules kind of just take the minis out of the trays and just use them as individual minis. And I think basically in the main game, it's not like you stick them all down to the base that you would do for Kings of War, because I think in the main game, like the full rules, I think you actually take minis out as you get wounds and stuff. So, Andrew saying, really, if you want to play Warhammer Fantasy, just get a better computer and get Total War games. I've actually got the Total War game, mate. I don't enjoy that either. A friend of mine bought it for me to try and get us to play some stuff online while we're kind of in lockdown and stuff. And I'll be honest, it just, I didn't enjoy that either. So I think that kind of sums up how I feel about Warhammer Fantasy, really. It didn't even translate to the kind of the video game side of things. But I do like Kings of War, so it's not like I don't like kind of fantasy rank and flank stuff. Marcus is saying 40k 8th edition had its problems, but 7 got so cheesy I didn't play any games the last year and a half of 7th. I think there were quite a lot of people felt that kind of way, mate. I think from like 5th edition, I think wasn't too bad from what I remember, what I understand. And then 6th and 7th seemed to come along quite quickly, and 8th was like a completely different version, really, wasn't it? And it started to improve on things, and then 9th has kind of just improved it again, I suppose, and tidied up a lot of the bits and pieces. I'm sure there's a lot of people kind of would like to go back to things like 3rd or 4th edition and stuff, but I think generally from an accessibility point of view, so 8th and 9th edition is probably the most accessible versions of 40k for some time, I would imagine. James Bray says he found it impossible to understand Kill Team. As a new tabletop game, I had to go to YouTube and other sources to understand. Yeah, to be honest, mate, I mean, there are some games that I've done well out of the videos with explaining the rules, because there is quite a lot of complexity in some of the rules that what should technically be a relatively straightforward, simple game. Kill Team was one of them. Shadespire was another one. Like those kind of the rules you get wrong type stuff. I've done pretty well at those games, like from a views point of view. But yeah, they're sort of the kind of games that should really be more straightforward. There is quite a lot of complexity in some of those, but I think the problem is that those kind of games feel like they weren't designed for new players. They feel like they were designed for people that know how to play like 40k and stuff. There's a lot of assumption in some of those. Even though they do things slightly differently in the rules. Like one of the main things people were doing wrong was almost trying to play certain 40k rules in Kill Team when there were certain things that were different. VGC and AOS and Warhammer Fantasy Battle are such different games you can't even really compare. Yeah, it's like comparing 40k to fantasy, basically. They're just different games, really. But yeah, the purpose of the video wasn't to compare the two games, really. The purpose of the video was just to say, like, look, just be like, you might still like fantasy, you might be sad that it's gone, and I completely get that. But like, don't, because what it was based upon was, at the time there was a big influx of people were coming into kind of the AOS groups and stuff, like the fan groups and things, and just basically like just shitting all over the game, really. And it was at a time when I was playing AOS. But then by the same stretch, you then got some quite toxic AOS players giving the fantasy gamers a hard time. So it was basically a video that was just trying to say, look, as long as everybody's enjoying what they're doing, just leave everybody else alone, kind of thing. But yeah, I obviously got the whole kind of the full hatred of well, see how you feel when they blow your game up, kind of thing. But I think people saw the title, watched the first 30 seconds, and then just kind of ranted at me, basically. So that's always fun. Let's have a look. Peter says, have you ever played Hex and Counter board games before? You play those with a book in your hand. Hex and Counter board games. Like what, mate? Because I haven't played any sort of board games where I specifically have to keep like sort of keep the rule book on the go. Certainly not after the first few games anyway. I might do when I'm first learning it. But the whole point of kind of board games is they're generally more accessible. I mean, there are some games that are sort of designed to be more complex. They are just meant to be more deep games, if you like. But then I wouldn't play them either by the same stretch. So, Barry said, I got my Imperial Knights Renegade just for the models. I got 30k Burn of Prospero, and that was actually a great standalone game. I think Betrayal of Calth as well is another one of those games that is very underrated. But again, was written by James Hewitt, and most people just bought the game for the minis and unfortunately missed out on what was. So I'm told, that I never played it. What I'm told was it was a really good game. But yeah, I see a lot of stuff online where you see people selling like Silver Tower. I see loads of copies of Silver Tower on like eBay and things, where it's all of the content of the game but with the minis missing, where people just bought those games just for like a boatload of cheap minis. I say cheap, but cheaper than buying them individually. Andrew says, here's a more controversial statement. I loathe the start of 9th edition 40k compared to the start of 8th. I also love that 8th was complete and gave every army a codex. I don't know what you mean by the start, mate. Like, is it the way the game starts? But the problem is 8th edition didn't have every codex at the start. Like, every edition has this issue, and you could technically say every army does have a codex. They just haven't been updated to 9th edition yet. So it kind of works both ways, doesn't it? Right. Let me get a bit more on here. But I'm painting slow tonight. You can tell I'm kind of chatting away. I'm definitely not painting at any kind of speed. This is definitely kind of relaxed painting, this. I'm glad I'm not a commission painter. I wouldn't be making much money, that's for sure. Right, so that's that bit. I want to do silver for that bit. I'm going to check my reference and just see what I'm looking at here. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of gold on his armor, I think. Tasty Brain Drain, good evening, mate. Andrew saying also everyone wanted Gorka Morka but got Speed Freaks instead. I think it's the same with Warcry, mate. Everybody wanted Mordheim and then or a big chunk of people wanted Mordheim, and then Warcry come out. So Warcry almost came out with a bit of like sort of backlash because it wasn't the game that people wanted, which is a shame really, because then it didn't really give the game a fair crack as a whip. Luckily, it seems to have kind of weathered that early storm, and it's still pretty well supported. I mean, Games Workshop have said they've got this announcement, haven't they, on Saturday, which is about Blood Bowl, Necromunda, and Warcry. So it'll be interesting to see what's in the announcement. Put these bits in. Let me scroll down a little bit. Tizzy Brain Drain says, showed me a little late because he was on his lunch break, but I'm here now. I don't think I realised you were overseas, mate. Tiberius says, the only reason you took my army book to a game in Warhammer Fantasy was to show your opponent you weren't lying. That might be the case once you knew the rules inside out, but I think getting to that point was a long, long way off. It's the same with 40k, to be fair. As much as I like the idea of the game, I can't see me ever getting to a point where I remember all of the stats, and I'd constantly be flicking backwards and forwards through a codex or an army book or whatever to kind of find those stats. Let me go back. Wow, every now and again this just jumps an absolute mile forward. VG said, I wonder if Speed Freaks or Gangs was in development when James was running the specialty games at GW. Would certainly be interested to hear his thoughts. Yeah, to be honest, I I might try and now he's one of our Patreons. I might try and get him on our Patreon podcast. Andrew says, I thought Necromunda was Mordheim for 40k. Yeah, that's what I mean, mate. Like it's the same thing, isn't it? They were basically the yin and yang to each other. Let's put a bit of gold trim on these boots, I think, as well. Krabby says, we've covered this before. You don't need to play all the rules and then have consolidated a lot in the new Space Marine Codex, and you get the app and updates as well. You definitely listened. I agree, you don't have to play all the rules, mate. And that's true of any game, really. But what I would say for 40k is that basically, like, the rules, like, you need the Codex to find out what your army does, and that's where all of your stat lines are, and that's where all of your weapon profiles are. So even if you're kind of like sort of toning down the actual rules of the game, you still need to keep referencing stats and stuff like that. And I'm sure over time you will get to know them. But just for me personally, I mentioned this on the stream the other night. I like to have the cards in front of me rather than actually having to keep going back and looking in a book. To be honest, I think one of the best things they did was dropping the table size. So you've actually got a little bit of space on a table now to put things like books or cards. When it was a big 6x4, they tended to not be a lot of space to put that kind of stuff on the table. And there's nothing worse than when there's books all over the play area. But yeah, it's horses for courses. Mark says, GW saw the popularity of Gaslands and made Speed Freaks about a month later trying to get on the bandwagon. I think it was a lot longer than a month, mate. I think, and I assume that the way they work, mate, they'll have been miles. They'll have been making that a lot sort of further in advance than a month. So, like for example, if GW suddenly announced Man of War this weekend, it's not like a reaction to Mantic releasing Armada. It'll be the fact that they've had it in some development for quite some time, and it's just been a coincidence. So they work too far out really for that kind of stuff to happen. Right, what do I want to do with this guy? I think we'll get some silver on here. I think just to block some of these colours in. Yeah, Mordheim, Necromunda for fantasy, but in 6th edition fantasy there was skirmish game all of itself at the back of the book. There's still a skirmish game now for AOS called, I forget what it's called now, but it's actually pretty good. Where's my silver? Grabby says we've covered. Oh yeah, we've been talking about that one. Peter says, totally personal opinion, but I find the style of the minis not that nice. The Conquest ones, I mean. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. They're kind of a funny scale as well. So it's like they've intentionally made. Well, I've heard two things about the game. One is I heard it was a mistake, and that they were made at the wrong size initially, and they've just stuck with it. I have no idea how true that is. But the other one is basically like they obviously just don't want to try and they want to create their own game, really. I think like their own size and scale and stuff. They're a bit bigger in scale. Some of them are nice. Some of them are just a bit standard, basically. Like they're just men with shields, basically. Like there's plenty of that kind of stuff out there. I think it just depends if it's your aesthetic or anything like that. James, I'm terrible at Total War games. I really want to get good, but I suck. That's me as well, mate. It feels like another one of them games where I need to put like a lot of time into them to really get the best out of them, and I don't really want to. Tyree saying 6 was great, didn't play much of 8 because of the standard army size jumped. Was that the point when they started to get bigger armies and stuff? Josh saying, regarding Super Fantasy Brawl, did you keep the massive Super Fan box, or are you going to throw it out for another storage solution? I have still got the Super Fan box, mate. Obviously, everything's stored inside the game trays things in there. But I backed the Feldherr case, mate. So as soon as that comes, I'll probably be transferring over to the Feldherr case. So and I think the Feldherr case will hold 22 miniature, 22 of the champions, plus the game board and all the tokens and everything else. So at some point, when that case arrives, I'll be transferring everything over into that. But I don't think that. I mean, I think it feels kind of quite frivolous. I think I'd rather have just had kind of a vacuum formed tray, like one layer tray kind of thing with all of the minis in, because they're in like packs of 3. It's not even like if you were going to a game you could just take 3 of them or something. Like if the 3 of them are in different trays, you still end up taking 3 trays. So it does feel a bit over engineered, and because of it, we've probably paid a bit more than we should have done. But I mean, it's quality. It makes the game look quality, but then would I have thought it was any less quality? So if anybody's familiar with something like the way like Batman Gotham City Chronicles, or the way that Hellboy was packaged with those kind of vacuum formed trays, I personally think I wish we'd just had that, because it's not like, I don't think if once you've painted these, you're not going to want to chuck them in there. They don't hold them enough securely enough that they're not going to rattle about anyway. So, but yeah, it's. I've kind of got mixed thoughts about it, because it does look really good quality, but the practicality of it is that it's just over engineered, I think, mate. James is saying it makes so much sense to have the skirmish games be accessible to new players, like Warcry. Kill Team should be 40k gateway. I agree, mate. I think those smaller scale games should be designed to be that kind of that foot into the game. Like if you're a new player, or you're a young kid and you're wanting to get into miniatures games, having them accessible, being able to buy one box of minis and play a game like you can with Warcry, is exactly what should be that entry point. And sadly, 40k just is that little bit overly complex for that entry point. Like it's not an awful game by any stretch. I've played lots of games of Kill Team and I've really enjoyed them, but it's not straightforward. Like, no matter what anybody says, anybody that says it's not complicated is just used to playing miniatures games, and probably used to playing 40k. So a lot of the things just make much more sense. But if you're brand new to miniature gaming, like I've done a couple of videos about kind of like 10 miniatures games for complete beginners, and I've always said that Kill Team's is not one of those games. I didn't even include Warcry in my last list, because essentially the starter box was no longer available, and so it becomes quite expensive as an entry point, which is another thing, really. I mean, I know we're getting a new starter box, which is the Catacombs one, which I think is a good move to get a starter box. But yeah, not having a starter box available and saying, well, you can still buy everything separately, that then becomes quite an expensive way for somebody to try the game, really, is to buy all those things separate. Because that's a game that deserves to have good scenery to play on, because jumping around between buildings is part of what makes that game fun. If you just buy a box and play like on a flat mat just to try it out and see what you think, you'll not experience the game as it should be played, really. Peter saying Grimdark Future is the most accessible 40k. Yeah, there's a few sort of mini agnostic games that probably would have been a better entry point. The problem with that is, and I've mentioned this before when we talk about miniature agnostic games, the problem with those games are, to a complete beginner who doesn't own any miniatures, has never played a miniatures game before, it's actually quite confusing to say, you just buy anything, just buy what you want, you can use it in this game. That's not what a beginner wants to see. A beginner wants to they want an entry point. They want to buy a box of stuff that they can take home and play, and that's why I never recommend any of those games for complete beginners, because I think it's something that once you've got once you know a bit more about miniature gaming and you've built up a kind of like a selection of stuff, then it might not be a bad idea. But yeah, to basically just say, well, you can buy whatever you want. I actually think that's confusing for new players. VG says the purpose of the video was to stir up the neckbeards. It wasn't intentionally that, mate, but it certainly had that effect. I'm trying to think where I was when I made it. I was certainly playing AOS at the time anyway, that's for sure. The problem is people still comment on it now as if I've just made the video, as if like and saying, well, that's not the case. And it's like, well, it was 3 years ago when I made the video. Just because it's not the case now, like doesn't change that. Crabby says, I really like how Ninth has changed the use of command points and characters. Feels for Marines at least that it would actually do what they're doing. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good stuff, mate, about the command points rather, and about the use of them, how it's improved the game. Sounds like a good thing. Is that his hand or a glove? It's his hand. How's this stream going, folks? By the way, am I managing to keep this on screen a little bit more? To be honest, I keep kind of forgetting that I'm streaming half the time, and I get into conversation and start chatting away and just get into painting the model, and I forget about getting it on camera. But hopefully, I'm keeping it relatively simple, so at least there's something to see on screen. Whether you're watching it or not, it's a different matter, but at least it's something to see. Andrew saying the AOS Warhammer Fantasy Battle video rustled my jimmies, and I like both games. Krabby says, are we going to be doing one of those live play-alongs again soon? When you say the live play-alongs, mate, do you mean the fighting fantasy books? Because yeah, I'm happy to do another one of them, mate. I'm happy to do one of those. I'm trying to decide whether that should be gold. I think that should be gold on there, not silver. And I think that bit should be silver though. Now I'm just talking to myself. I'll put a little bit of silver on here. Scott says, pictures posted in Facebook group. Thank you very much, Scott. Anybody that's not a member of the Facebook group, there's a link for it down below in the description of this video. Please come and check the Facebook group out. Mark says, I still remember when I first started my Tomb King's army for fantasy. Just got my codex and a small 2,500 point army when the pre-order for 8th launched. I was so pissed I should have stayed with my goblins for a bit longer. Yeah, they're not cheap, those books either. That's the problem, isn't it, mate? But and one of the problems is up until 9th editions just come out there, they used to not really give you a lot of notice that there was a change coming. Unfortunately. At least they do give you that notice now. They kind of, even if it's a tease, it should be enough to kind of say, hang on a second, don't buy anything for a while. There's change coming kind of thing. Right. I do a bit of silver here as well. John says, I have some board games that need a qualification to play. High Frontier, Empire of the Sun. Yeah, I mean, there are some games that are like that, mate, but that's what I mean. They are designed to be that kind of overly complex. And some people love that. I've got absolutely no problem with them. It's just, it's definitely not my kind of thing to play something of that level of complexity. I just don't get to see the fun in that personally. But yeah, horses for courses, as I've said. Ty basically said it's not the Prince Harry Daddy James Hewitt allegedly. No, it's James M. Hewitt, mate. He's Needy Cat Games. He's in our Discord group, and he's a thoroughly nice chap as well. The same James Hewitt that made the Hellboy game for Needy Cat Games, made Silver Tower, made Blitz Bowl, all those kind of things. Busy saying, even with board games, you get some. Even with board games, you always get someone constantly checking the rules. Usually because they're losing, though. There is that, mate. I also think what you tend to find is with casual gamers, they never play it often enough to remember the rules. So every time they go and play it, they've got to remind themselves it. I think that's just what happens with board games, basically. Like, nobody goes, like, oh, we played such and such last night, should we play it again tonight? People chop and change what they play, and I think that's kind of what happens. Yeah, VJ saying he's also on our Discord and his own. Yeah, he's got his own one, mate. Yeah. Where? Andrew's saying the skirmish game for AOS is called Warcry. We AOS players don't care much for AOS skirmish. It's not AOS skirmish, mate. There are rules in the AOS, like in the General's Handbook, there are rules in there for playing something engagement it's called. Oh, what's it called again? It's basically rules for playing on a smaller board size with lower points costs. A little bit like what they do with Combat Patrol. VGN three-way Patreon chat, definitely, mate. I'll do that one. James is saying there, did you gloss the gems and things on Super Fantasy Brawl status, mate? I like using gloss on some models, but it's rarely used in tutorials. I did, mate. Yeah, I glossed the gems. I didn't do any other glossing on the model, just on the gems themselves, mate. Edson was just going to see unicards are the answer. Yeah, new combined Space Marine book is a beast. Yeah, I've not picked up any of the that's kind of chat books yet. Epoch of Ox, hello. Conquest is really good. Rank and flank game. Andrew's saying, unless you mean Hinterlands, which is the author from 86, and he got a job at GW. No, mate, it's. I'm trying to remember what it's called now. It's definitely called. Is it called Meeting Engagements? I think it is. But it's definitely in the rule book. Epoch saying, stick some lacquer on them. They'll be solid on Fantasy Brawl for transporting them. Yes, I guess you should do that anyway with some of that stuff. Vijay saying the insert train Blitzball Season 2 that holds 2 teams and minis is great. Yeah, it is really good actually, mate. Crowley saying, don't get this thought that 40k is complicated. You can play 40k with the basic rules on the A4 rule sheet and disregard points, etc., and still have perfect enjoyable games. My point being, mate, is that as soon as you take it beyond what's in the... So let's take the Indomitus box for an example, right? You can play with what's in that Indomitus box, but as soon as you want to take it beyond that, you have to have a codex. And then you start getting into stat lines for different models and stuff. Even in the Indomitus book and in the main rule book, it starts talking about things like reanimation protocol and stuff. And it doesn't tell you what they are because they're in the codex stuff. So it's okay saying you can play with what's in the box, but you're not. You're basically having to ignore like what gives those armies their flavor and stuff. It's not an easy access point for new players. It's the kind of game where you almost need somebody to teach you. If you're trying to learn it from the book, it's quite confusing, and it talks about things that you can't find until somebody tells you, oh yeah, they're not in that book, they're in this other book that you have to buy. That's what I'm getting at, really. Marcus has only played 10 games of Kill Team, but the best game I played was the second game when me and a friend failed to kill a single model for an hour. We just started laughing. I've had games, mate, where you end up just constantly just sort of throwing things at each other, and keep rolling those injury rolls and nothing's happening. Peter says, a miniature agnostic game is indeed not targeted at beginners. It's targeted at veterans like me who have surplus of minis they aren't seeing use. Yeah, I agree, mate. That's I agree. But whenever I make a video about 10 games for beginners to get beginners into war games and stuff, there's always somebody who comments and says, oh, well, what about this game? You can just use any minis you want. And it's like, yeah, I do get what you're saying, but they're not like a good entry point. They're not a good entry point for absolutely brand new players. Epoxy and Bushido, Moonstone, Bot Wars, Batman, Marvel Crisis Protocol, and Fantasy Brawl. All solid starter boxes. Yeah, they are. The video I did about 10 games for beginners, one of the things I took into consideration was the cost. One of the reasons I ruled out like Marvel Crisis Protocol as an example was at the time that was like £100 or £90 for that starter box, and I think that's quite a lot of money if you're just dipping your toe in as a complete absolute beginner. It doesn't make it a bad game, but like if you're like some of the criteria that I put in when I was making that video, and everybody will have their own criteria, were things like how easy is it to actually just to get started. So Marvel Crisis Protocol has a lot of has all of the minis, which need a lot of work. So they need like clipping out, they need building. They're not the easiest models to build. I think anybody would admit that one. Where you get some games that just come with like single piece minis, like Walking Dead, for example, just come with single piece minis. And if you're just wanting to try like the game, you don't necessarily want to be overwhelmed by kind of like having to do like learning a week's worth of hobby before you can even put the minis together to play a game. There's just kind of like there's different entry points really. That's kind of what I was getting at with that kind of stuff. Everything on cameras when he's looking. Thank you very much, folks. That's all I wanted to just double check. Yeah, VG's point there as well about the key to getting people and opponents to agree on which rules to include and which ones you don't. Yeah, that can be. If you just play two people just learning the game, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Simon Dave saying the new starter boxes are priced well for new players. To be honest, the starter boxes have always been priced well. Like the smallest starter box, it's cheaper to buy the new small starter box, I think it is, than it is to buy a box of the Necron Warriors. Like, so you might as well buy that and get all the other stuff. That's madness, really, that kind of stuff. But yeah, they've always been accessible from a price point of view, but they essentially teach you to play a very stripped down version of it, and as soon as you want to move from anything outside of that, you instantly have to buy a lot more stuff. It's not a negative. That's just the game. That's how the game is. It doesn't make it a bad game or anything like that. That's just how it is. Busey saying, yeah, we should do another Fighting Fantasy play along, or someone in the chat killed us all. James Bruce says, Ian Livingston tweeted out something I've been working on the other day. A nice one, mate. Dom Symes saying, first time watcher. Hello, Dom. How are you doing? Says, what systems do you play apart from GW stuff? To be honest, mate, I don't play a lot of GW stuff. I play Warcry, and that's pretty much it, really, from a GW standpoint. Blitzball a bit. I play Kings of War. I play a bit of Infinity. I've got Super Fantasy Brawl here. I play a bit of God Tier. What else have I got on the table at the minute? I can't even think now at the minute, but because we haven't been playing many games with the lockdown stuff. Yeah, I play all sorts of stuff, mate. This whole channel really is about just completely different, like every game that's out there, completely different games. Vanguard from from Mantic, a little bit of Dead Zone now and again. Yeah, you name it, mate. I've either played it or I've tried it, and it's not something I kind of I play anymore, really. Tony said, I struggle with Heroica and the growliness there, so I have no hope with TTG. Thank you for coming anyway, Dom. Much appreciated. Tiberius is saying from 6th to 7th, if you bought a starter box at £50, in July and August, you got a free copy of the big 7th rulebook. Oh, that's quite good. And Krabby saying, yeah, it's all about the people you're playing for sure, but it's not really difficult to pick up the basic stuff. And unlike other games, they have an army of stores to visit and learn in. I know they have an army of stores to visit and learn in, mate. Then, in my experience, I've not had good experience with that. And I know you've had a good experience, but I've tried 2 different Games Workshop stores, and both times it's been organised chaos, mate. It's been a crash. So, and whenever I've tried to just get them to kind of give me an intro, they tell me to come to the kind of the learning days, and then they come with the hard sell. So yeah, my experience of trying to learn in a Games Workshop store hasn't been positive. But yeah, I know you had better experience. What should we do with this one now? I think do we stick with the gold for that chest on the back? I feel like I want to do it a bit dark. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll stick with the gold, and I think we'll highlight it up later on. Meeting engagements. That's it, mate. That's the one. Kelly says, I have a theory that COVID-19 has made 40k 9th edition dead on arrival. It's a new version that no one can play at the moment. No players means no real meta, and I'm not buying any codexes because I'm not playing. The problem, I know what you're saying, and there's some element of there's no way that a meta is developing because there's not enough games getting played. However, that said, what that is doing is it's driving people to build armies, and instead of reacting to the meta, they're buying all of the new stuff. So actually, it might not be a bad thing. That little bit of slowdown from a gaming perspective, instead of things being massively overpowered or people finding all the glitches. I'm sure there's still a lot of games getting played, because not every area is a kind of like a stopping folks playing. I think sometimes we think about our own local areas and think that everybody's in the same situation, and I'm forever seeing people playing games on Facebook, and it guts me every day because I can't play them. But yeah, I think there's still a lot of games getting played, that's for sure. Yeah, Tony's saying to Dom there, yeah, there's a real big spread of games and systems. TBC, I'm talking out, I'm knackered. What about games like Twisted? I think there's a Governs box and 2 starter boxes. Nice. Twisted's not a game I know a lot about. There are games like the War Cradle games, things like Mythos and Wild West Exodus. They come with pretty good, or they have done in the past, come with pretty good starter boxes. But I think the games that I mentioned from a starter box perspective were things like Beastgrave. I thought was pretty good value for what you get in the box, and it's like everything you need for 2 players just to get started and playing. Those are easy fit together models. They basically just push fit stuff. You don't even need glue for them. I think I mentioned Blood Red Skies. Again, the 2-player starter box for Blood Red Skies I think is good value. I'm trying to remember what other games I said were on that list now. Burrows and Badgers I thought was a good starter game, purely for the fact that if you're not into that kind of sort of heavy sci-fi or fantasy aesthetic, sort of having sort of little animals and stuff like that, for all there's not a starter box, there is basically a what's it called? There's a really easy way to get started by basically just buying the animals that you like and putting together like little war bands, and it might introduce kind of like some younger players or players who are not really into that kind of the idea of just constant space battles. I can't remember the other ones now off the top of my head. I'll have to watch the video. Let me just get some more paint on here. What else are we up to? Samuel Davis said, I feel my dice turned round playing Kill Team. Great game, but so many dice rolls. Yeah, they are a lot of dice rolls. Carla, hello Carla, how are you doing? Andrew Fairbanks, thank you very much for the donation. He says, yes, it's meeting engagements. It's not really skirmish. It's a level at half the size with Warcry's deployment, but I normally play at 1,000. That was it, mate. Yeah, when I say skirmish, I kind of just meant like a smaller level kind of entry point. And that's why I was saying it's a bit like kind of combat patrol from that perspective. But I never hear anybody talk about it. And it's actually it's a pretty good way of getting into that. The way Combat Patrol is a really good way of getting into 40k now, and I love the way they've embraced actually having an entry into the game that isn't just straight 2,000 points. For too long, it's almost just been assumed if you're not playing 2,000 points, you're not playing the game properly. And unfortunately, when people are trying to get started, that's a lot of the kind of the information that they get told online. Right. Where were we up to there? Bacala, a game with no meta sounds perfect. Really simply, playing depends on where you are. I'm actually playing today, not sure. Yeah, I mean, the UK is going through some stuff at the minute now, but for quite long periods of time, people have still been going to game stores and playing and stuff. And I see a lot of the Americans from different regions. They've all got different rules as well and stuff about when they can play. Yeah, friendly people are no meta. Yes, definitely. Dom says, do you find with the era Kickstarters, yes, I've bought in Super Fantasy Brawl, that Wargaming has become bloated with quantity over quality in rule systems? Now that's a conversation starter. It's a good question, mate, actually. I wouldn't say it's necessarily quantity over quality sometimes. I think what it's done is it's the biggest problem we've got now, I would say, when it comes to Kickstarter is people's head are now turned by just huge amounts of models. And it's almost a case of how much can I get for my money? And sometimes the game is very much a secondary. There are some great games that are out there. There's some great games that's come through Kickstarter, and some of them haven't even funded, unfortunately, purely because it's like, well, it's not one of the big CMON games, or it's not a game that it doesn't come with enough free stuff, if you like. I think it's driven a bit of a change in mentality, where people almost, I honestly feel like a lot of the time the rules for a game become very much secondary. And there can sometimes be a bigger onus on, am I getting enough minis to justify spending that kind of money? And to be honest, I mean, everybody hobbies their own way. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think what it will do, if it continues, I think the point you make about quantity over quality will change the landscape. People won't invest in actually sort of writing good rules. They'll do what GW did with those box sets, and they'll just bang a load of minis into an average rule set and just take the money and run, basically. Why spend development time when people are not playing the games? Phil saying it's not dead in the water. He's played a game at his local gaming store. He's got the Necron Codex and cards. Yeah, that's what I say, mate. I think it's purely down to kind of different regions. Like, it feels like there's no games getting played in my region at the minute, but it doesn't mean gaming's dead. It just means that we're in a more serious state. Tasty Brain Drain says, yeah, restrictions here has been lifted enough. We can start getting back together and playing games again, which he did for the first time. Nice one. John says, with the change to Tier 2, you could play a game in the garden. I've got an umbrella and waterproof minis. I think we'll need snowsuits, mate, at this rate. Tony says, one-on-one gaming was going really well at the shop. Everyone was really sensible and followed the rules, but Leeds being put in Tier 2, we've had to stop it from today. Yeah, it's not wanting to get too much into that kind of whole COVID thing, but it is a real shame that a lot of these companies have spent a lot of money putting in systems to make these places safe, and then they basically, regardless of whether they're safe on, like, regardless of that, they're having to close anyway. Scott's painting stopped now, should I say. He's now got 60 Victrix Vikings on the go. Peter says all depends on your opponents. Crunchy games, clunky historical stuff. For others in the group that are new, we adapt. Things like Descent, Bolt Action, X-Wing, Wings of War. Yeah, I agree, mate. And that's my point, really, is that there has to be games that are entry points. Simon Davis says, I rarely play 2,000 points in 40k anymore. I feel 1,000 at 15 is more fun. Excuse me. Yeah, I agree, mate. I think the problem is if you're new to it, you start looking online, you start looking in the Facebook groups to get information, and most of the talk, if not all of the talk, before 9th edition was kind of like, oh, you need to play this amount of points. This is what we play, kind of thing. It certainly has been my experience from the clubs that I've been to. People only ever played at those bigger points levels. I've had this conversation with Krabby before about this exact same thing, about like that people only really play on those bigger points games is what's made it a bit of a barrier for me being able to get started in 40k. Let me scroll down a bit here. Vijay saying, Bros and Badgers seems great. If you ever want to know who would win if Mr. Toad fought Brer Rabbit. Just Kev, hello mate, how you doing? He says, how's tricks, what you painting? I'm painting Goldar, mate, from Super Fantasy Brawl. So this is my My pirate, who is the scourge of the several seas. What's on your table tonight, mate? Are you painting? Are you just chilling? Are you just hanging out? Marco, good evening, mate. He said, I'll be playing my second ever 40k game next weekend. 1,000 points of Marines and Death Guard. Who are you playing against, Marco? Have you got a friend that knows how to play? Are you learning it together, or do you have some experience of the game? How are you finding kind of getting started with it? It'd be good to kind of get some different people's opinions. Kev's got his Blightlord Terminators, mate. He's just chucking on the paint now. I feel that's what I'm doing at the minute, mate. Just chucking paint on here. It looks a right mess at the minute, folks, but it will come together. It needs a wash over it and stuff just to pull some of this together. So I'm getting just the base colours on it at the minute. What I'm using here is a Rhinox hide. Just using a dark brown to go over the kind of the rope parts, which is basically holding the treasure chest to his back. Simon, this is looking good, mate. I'm at that point, and I get to this point in every single miniature that I paint where I think, my God, what are you doing? You're making a right mess of this. And it's always the point where you're basically just kind of putting on the base coats. You might have kind of sort of gone over in places and it needs tidying up. There's not enough of it painted to think, well, I've got all the base coats on, and it just starts to look really untidy. I'm at that stage at the minute, but you just got to power through it and get there. And get there, I will. Nice one. I must admit, Marco, your Marines were looking pretty fantastic, mate. You've done a cracking job with them. And Krabby, the stuff that you're doing with your nice board build, mate, your diorama type terrain build thing, mate, is looking fantastic. I've never really ever taken anything on of that kind of size. I think at some point in the future I'll have to give it a try, but kind of got my hands full at the minute. But yeah, I'm watching your stuff with interest, mate, to see how it comes together. TC Brindren says, speaking of Kickstarter games, since Kickstarter games sometimes don't get that much exposure, maybe a topic for a future video or live stream could be our list of top Kickstarter minigames. The reason I haven't done them, mate, is because they end up looking like some kind of like advertising thing, because so many channels get paid for talking about Kickstarters. I get emails weekly from Kickstarter companies wanting me to promote their Kickstarter. So I tend to kind of stay away from that kind of stuff unless it's something I'm specifically interested in myself. And the other side is, from a Kickstarter point of view, I'm a bit burned on it, if I'm honest. I don't feel like backing Kickstarters now is the deal it used to be. That basically you might as well wait until it comes out at retail, save on shipping, get a discount at retail, not overspend on like kind of like 3 or 4 expansions that you probably won't even get to play with. So I tend to kind of avoid that stuff really for those reasons, because what I don't want to do is end up just becoming a channel that's basically is just doing free marketing for a lot of Kickstarter companies. And I certainly don't want to be paid for it, because I'd hate to talk about a Kickstarter just so I can make money out of it, for somebody to back that Kickstarter, and then for that company to not ship or to not deliver what they promised, and for people to think like, God, like Andy said, it was good. Because the problem is when, like at that point of Kickstarter, we've got no idea what it's going to ship. We've got no idea what the quality's like. So it's always just a bit of a concern for me, mate, really, for that particular reason. I've talked about them in the past when it's been something that interested me. Like Super Fantasy Brawl, I talked about quite a bit, and I backed it with my own money. Like if this was a problem, I got stung the same way. Where are we up to there? Just Kev says, we know when Fantasy Brawl is coming to retail. I've got a feeling it's not coming until next year, mate. But if you're interested in it, you can pick up a Kickstarter version from Mythic's website. Let me just quickly check this out. What am I doing for them bits? I think we'll put a bit of. Do I want to put the red into that? Need a bit more gold in here, I think. Mark was saying only played one game so far. I'm playing a guy from his local gaming club, and the lad's going to teach me why we play. Yeah, I honestly think that's the way to learn 40k, is to get somebody to teach you, because there are some rules that are not the most intuitive. Basically, they are once somebody explains to you how they're supposed to be played, but there are some bits that just seem a little bit like, what does that mean? Right, how do I want to do this bit then? How do I want to do them panels? Do I want to do them silver? I think I'll do them red. Carlos says, I just saw Gatefall on Kickstarter today and those minis look chef's kiss. I don't think I know that game actually, Gatefall. I don't think I've seen anything for that. Mark was saying rules are okay. Glad everything's in the codex. That's the only book I need. Apart from the rule book, obviously, as well, mate. It is so far, anyway. But that's obviously because the codex is brand new, isn't it? It's just come out. What's folks thinking about the digital versions of the codex now? Is the system pretty good? I know there was a few complaints about it when it first came up and running, but I guess at that point it wasn't really kind of its full potential. What's in the rule book about the what's it called again? The narrative stuff. I forget what it's called now. Anybody liking that stuff? I've not even watched any of the previews or anything for the codexes, so I'm not really up on the latest information for that stuff. We'll get in here and we'll tidy up this little bit. Right, what colour are we going to do those trousers? Are we going to give them white trousers? We'll give them brown boots, I think. Martin says his cat's declared he's taking a break from painting his Terrorgeist. Paints his few, paint enough at night. Not too much on the Case Marine, but my knobs are about tabletop standard. Why does that always still make me giggle, mate? Nice one. Martin was saying Krabby's board's looking sweet. It is looking sweet, mate. Krabby was saying it's coming along. Needs to be patient with the process. Do everything with the gaming aesthetic in mind. To be honest, mate, it's a really good point. That it's one thing that a lot of people miss. Is kind of forgetting the fact that you actually want to play on it as well. And they go into it and it becomes a diorama, but actually it's completely unplayable. So it's kind of good that you got one eye on that as well, really. Simon Davidson, he's banned himself from Kickstarter, but still waiting on Street Fighter and Bloodborne. Street Fighter feels like it's is that massively delayed? It feels like that was a long time ago that Street Fighter was a Kickstarter. Has there been problems with it, or is it just a bit delayed with the whole COVID thing? Or I remember seeing the minis. I think I even talked about it on a video, but I've not really kept up to date or heard anything about it really. Dom saying, did you miss Salute this year? I totally got it was cancelled, but fully understand why. To be honest, mate, I did a video a little while ago about why I'm not going back to Salute again, and essentially the reasons I gave why I wasn't going back to Salute was, one, it's quite expensive to get down to London from the northeast. Like it's I think it's about 70-80 quid return on a train, and the problem was by the time I got down there and paid that 70-80 quid, I probably spent about 3 or 4 hours there and then got on the train and went home again. The stuff that I could have bought there tended to be cheaper online anyway, with sales and stuff like that, and a lot of those companies have online sales which is the same price as what they're selling at Salute for, and so I could have saved that 80 quid and spent it on hobby stuff. And I honestly just felt that there wasn't enough there at Salute anymore to keep my interest. Like, there's no participation games. There's very little in the way of areas even just to sit down and kind of and play a game. Like, so if I bought a game while I was there, there's nowhere to kind of sit down and break that game out and have a game with somebody. And so that was why basically I just felt it was getting more and more companies trying to sell their Kickstarter stuff by getting their Kickstarters in front of people and not actually having anything to sell on the day. And I felt like it wasn't value for money for me to travel all that way for that. What I would say is, I think that was 2 years ago I made that video. Since then, obviously, I've met a lot of people online that I would never really get to meet face to face generally, and I would go back to Salute purely just to kind of to meet up with folks really, and make it an opportunity to meet people. The UK Games Expo is by far my favourite convention. For all of the reasons really I've just been talking about there, like you can actually sit and play games there. You can make a full 3 or 4 day weekend of the UK Games Expo, where Salute for me felt like a 2 or 3 hour shopping trip. Unfortunately, Crusade, that's the one I was trying to think of, mate. Yes. Peter says, never done a Kickstarter ever. Always think if a game's really good, it'll come to retail, and if it doesn't, that means no influx of players and it'll die out anyway. It depends, mate. When it comes to board games, which is generally what I've backed on Kickstarter. Some of them don't come to retail, like Batman, for example, didn't come to retail, and it wasn't about getting like an influx of players to kind of to keep the game going. You're buying a self-contained game really. So, but miniatures games, yeah, I know what you mean. I tend to not back them for that reason. Yes, Crusade, that's the one I was thinking of. James is saying Crusade stuff in the Necron Codex is fun flavour but not huge sweeping campaign. Simon Davis saying the Crusade stuff for 40k seems a bit complicated. Not keen on the RPG stuff. I've not looked into it too deeply, to be fair. Jim's saying the latest White Dwarf has a scenario with custom Crusade rules. It just arrived today, mate, actually, but I've not had a chance to read it yet. Marcus says I'm going to sell my code since I'm not going to install the app. Interesting, mate. Vijay saying delays for Capcom with Street Fighter, but it's almost done. Yeah, big delays. They've been a bit slow with the updates. Andrew Fairbanks, yes, Street Fighter was the one that Angry Joe promoted. Angry Joe promoted it because I think he's got something to do with it. He owns the game, I think. Like it's Jasco or something like that, isn't it? I think, and I think he either owns the company or he's got something to do with them. It's not just promoting it. He was actually like one of the creators, I think, if you like. James saying, random aside, anyone know what the ruined hands on the base of the Necron Canoptech reanimator are from? I don't think I've seen them, mate. And Dom saying, yeah, they need to sort out a gaming area. It's one of the biggest things that's missing, mate. It's just, even if it's not a gaming area, that they need an area where people can actually like sit and like sort of socialise. Like even the demos that for the games that are there are almost few and far between. And I know it's because it's grown bigger than it was probably originally designed to be, and it's probably a bit of a lifeline for some smaller companies where people probably don't go to their website because they've never heard of the company and stuff, and it's an opportunity for them to make a bit of money, and it's an opportunity to get in front of like loads of customers and stuff. So from a smaller company point of view, I totally get why it's still relevant, but for bigger companies and stuff, I just feel like it's a missed opportunity, really. I wish it was more of an event and not just a shopping trip. Krabby says Crusader shipping it nicely. Read the rules for a good few times. I need to get a couple of games in to understand the character progression stuff because I've never done anything like that before. It's a Dreadnought. There you go. Sean Blake, how you doing, fella? Nice to see you in. Tony saying new White Dwarf was interesting. Chewed, torn and eaten. Oh, I remember you saying, mate. Yeah, your dog got a hold of yours, didn't he? You poor thing, man. You poor thing. How we doing? Oh, we've got a nice little crowd in tonight in the chat. It's kind of been pretty steady. It was up at around 60 for most of the chat. We're at 50 now. That's not too bad. James says I'm going to say the word carnivale again. Do you know what, mate? I specifically bought that magazine to have a look at the Carnivale miniature to see what it was like, to try and find out a little bit more about it. And I was quite interested. I was quite interested to read a little bit of background about the game as well. It was a shame the rule book's not free. I would have quite liked to have seen the like a PDF version of the rules to have a read through them. But yeah, it's a definite potential, mate. I would say it's a definitely maybe, as Liam Gallagher would say. Crabby says, in general, do people feel White Dwarf is worth a subscription nowadays? I'll be honest, mate. I think I hardly read it when it comes. I look at the pictures. It's kind of like it's something I flick through when I'm having a cup of coffee. I think it's, if you're really into kind of like the lore and the background, and I think it's a good magazine if you're really into it. But for me, kind of like as a kind of a more of just kind of like a passing interest, it's not so much, mate. I like the fact it's not just a catalogue anymore like it used to be. It used to be like a sales pitch, where this actually feels like they're putting specific content into it now. But it feels like the kind of thing. I got a subscription as a gift for Christmas, which is why I still get it. But for me, it feels like the kind of thing that if I know what's going to be in it that month, like if there's going to be some Warcry rules or something in it, it's worth me picking it up or something like that. But the problem is I generally don't go to gaming stores to pick it up. So for me, it's just it's nice to have something that turns up once a month, really. But again, like I say, half the time I tend to just flick through it over a cup of coffee, and probably don't really put the time into reading and digesting it. To be honest, I get more enjoyment from reading some of the kind of like the Jervis Johnson articles and stuff, and the ones where they're talking about how they created the games, or like about like his thoughts about certain things, or why something is a certain way in the game. I probably get more enjoyment from reading those kind of articles in it. Where are we up to? Peter saying these conventions great for historical gamers and mini agnostic gamers who mix and match from different manufacturers. If you're in for Dead Zone, for example, 90% of the whole is no use. Yeah, I'm not a historical gamer, mate. Salute has always been very highly historical gamers, but like just going to see like when I say a demonstration game, it's like there's these games clubs that come along and put on a game, but you can't play it. You and you don't want to travel all that way just to stand there and watch them, kind of thing. It's like they've basically booked a slot to just go and put the game on, and I know a lot of them like work like all year to get these games ready, but I end up just kind of walking past and going, oh, that's a nice table. It's kind of lost on me a little bit, if I'm honest. Maybe if I was like a terrain builder or something like that, I might have a better appreciation for it. But yeah, it's not a convention for me. I'd much rather actually be able to play stuff there. I mean, the amount of different games that I actually kind of like, I'm interested in, they should be stuff that is of interest to me, and unfortunately, there just hasn't been really. The difference is these days now, like I said, this is now my job now. I see those sort of events now more as like a networking opportunity, as an opportunity to speak to the different companies that I might only email, or I might only kind of very briefly have any kind of conversations with. So I have to look at them slightly differently now as well, really, more as a networking opportunity. Because networking is not something that's very easy to do at the minute with our current climate. I think we're going to have him bare-chested underneath here. You can't really see whether he's got a top one or not, so we're going to have him that he hasn't. Where are we up to? Mark was saying, what's your thoughts about on tabletop and Wayland? Can we expect your industry point of view in a video? No, probably not, mate. I think it's... I think my honest opinion is on tabletop and Wayland have been working together for quite some time. So this is not like completely out of the blue, if you like. The fact that they've actually physically sold the business to Wayland was a bit of a surprise, but I wasn't surprised that that's who they would sell it to if that was the case. For me, I get what's in it for on tabletop. They're basically securing their business. Like their whole business model is based upon companies coming to visit them to basically spend money for advertising with them and to put their games in front of consumers' eyes. And unfortunately, with the current situation, travel restrictions, social distancing, on tabletop are not getting the opportunity to do their kind of bread and butter. So from that point of view, I'm glad that they're not going bust or anything like that. I'm glad they're continuing their business, and I think it's a good thing. I kind of wonder what it means for Wayland. Why is it a good deal for them? Essentially, what they're buying is a media arm. Maybe on tabletop are going to do more promotional stuff specifically for them. So in the way Games Workshop have their Warhammer community team, maybe they're going a bit deeper into that kind of stuff. I'm just at this point in time, I'm not really sure what's in it for them, but I'm sure they've obviously sort of gone through that business decision side of it. And I mean, what people might not realise is Wayland Games are a massive distributor these days. They're not just like a shop that sells miniatures, if you like, or sells games. They are one of the UK's biggest distributors. They're one of, if not the biggest distributor in the UK now, for like lots and lots of games. They're a distributor for Mantic, they're a distributor for Night Models, they're a distributor for Weird Miniatures. They've obviously got their own studio as well with War Cradle. So they're a big concern. But I guess I know Warren was chatting tonight. They was having a bit of like an open forum thing on Discord and stuff to have a chat with kind of like some of the viewers and answer some of the questions. So I'm sure we'll start to find out a little bit more about that. But yeah, it's a bit of a surprise for me in terms of I'm not sure what the benefit for War Cradle is at this stage, but I'm sure that will all come out in the wash at some point. But yeah, I don't really have enough information to make a video about it. I'm just kind of guessing about it really. Luke's saying it was a bit gutted the rulebook wasn't free PDF too. I assumed it would have been, as they do everything so cheap that a PDF to print rules seems their sort of thing. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to see more about the game, to be fair. Dom saying, what's the oldest mini you painted last? Mine was a 1985 Gary Morley Chaos Jester. And also, what mini would you want to paint if you could get one? Oh, good question, Dom. What's the oldest mini I've painted? My Hero Quest minis I've been painting. I've got some in front of me here, actually, that are on the table. So these little ones. So these ones are probably the oldest minis I've painted recently, or in the recent past. Which one would I like to paint? I actually think I'd quite like to paint something like... what would I like to paint? Maybe like a knight or something, you know, like the 40k knights or something like that. Just purely because I've never really painted anything like that before. I know it's dead easy to just pick one up, but yeah, something like that. I've got no use for it though, which is why I've never bought one in the past. Good question though, mate. Peter says, talking about White Dwarf, I'm enjoying his sub this year. The articles about games I don't play much. Yeah, some of the articles are good, like, mate. James is saying, I'd like it if GW did White Dwarf annuals once a year. I'd buy a big magazine with just all the painting and basing articles. Yeah, there is some good stuff in there, but you end up forgetting which one it's in to go back and reference it. Luke's saying he had a cracker night getting 3 board games in one evening. Nice one, mate. Proper jealous. Simon Davis saying, talk about mags. 28 mag is a cool one. Available free online. Awaiting the inevitable BlackJack Legacy Con. We've kind of had BlackJack Legacy Con before. We had 2 weekenders where basically there was myself and a couple of lads from Top Table Gaming. We had our Top Table Legacy Weekender. We had one last October and we had one in the March, and they went really well. And I think once we get back to some kind of a point in the future, whenever that might be, now this is my full-time job, I'll definitely be organising some kind of get-together. Lucian, he played Trek in the World, a new game, Summit Ticket to Ride was nice. Game called Planet with 3D planets that you magnetise, and then Whitehall, nice one. Nice to see some games getting played, mate. Vijay saying, yeah, when he went to Tabletop Minion Expo in the US, there was a guy that had gone to a huge amount of effort to set up this amazing looking pirate game and no one was playing. I felt bad for him, but I was hungover, so I wasn't up for learning a new game. The thing is, mate, they set up, the ones at Salute, they set up these fantastic looking games, but nobody is allowed to play them. They just play them themselves. That's my kind of point really on those ones. Yeah, get his chest out for the lads. I don't think he has a bare chest in the actual artwork, but for mine, he is. Right, I'm going to put a bit of Ushabti Bone, I think, on the wrap for his weapon there, I think. Yeah, Jason, he went to the US for Tabletop Minions and he'd come to the UK for BlackJack Con. One day, mate, we'll get there, won't we? When the world allows us all to do it, we'll get back to some kind of situation where we can start to travel again. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking now. I'm pretty sure I won't be getting to Adepticon next year. Sadly, not because I don't want to, but I just don't think we're going to be in a situation where things are any better that soon. James says he had to make an excuse at a local con to get away from a guy with a pirate game. 2 big ships and all the models look great. Didn't have a time. I think that's the. I mean, it's. I do feel sorry for folks when they go to a lot of trouble and they set up demo games and then nobody plays the demos. Like, you see it a lot at you see a lot of places like UK Games Expo and stuff where there's really small kind of independent companies and they're obviously. The creator is the person that is sitting there trying to kind of get people to try the game. And unfortunately, they might be particularly kind of introverted. They're not the kind of person that's trying to kind of round up people and get them involved. And so they end up just sitting there looking a little bit sad and a little bit bored. And I always feel sorry for those folks. Not so sorry that I go and try the games out, but I'm sure there's some amazing ones that get missed because of that. Where was that one? Simon Davis says, I was there. Great fun building that board with Luke. Were you really, mate? There you go. I'm glad you enjoyed it, mate. Yeah, Luke's a good guy. I'm glad he kind of came along and did that. Luke said he wishes he had the Nighthorn Chariot, his favourite mini ever. Yeah, it's nice, that chariot, mate, to be fair. Where are we up to here? Peter saying, I hope on Tabletop keep doing a variety of games they do now. Their bolt action and sharp practice reports were very nice. Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks that they kind of have to keep doing what they were doing. Otherwise people will notice the difference and people will kind of drift away from it if it's not what they kind of used to. And obviously you've got all the backstage folks who pay monthly fees and subscriptions and stuff. They're going to want things to at least, if not stay the same, they're going to want things to improve. So that's what I mean. It's kind of going to be interesting to see how it changes for them. I mean, I absolutely wish them 100% wish them all the best. I don't want to see anybody kind of going to the wall. And if things got to the point where this was the best option for them, then I absolutely do wish them all the best luck in the world kind of thing. And I really hope it works out. But at this stage, I honestly don't know what's in it for Wayland, and that's the bit I'd like to know more about. Andrew saying every Monday and Wednesday is a Tabletop Legacy Con. There you go. Probably saying I really like the lads from Beast of War. They're spot on and clearly love the hobby and all of its facets. Hope it works out well for all parties. Yeah, I agree, mate. Scroll down a bit. Luke put some pictures on the Facebook group. Thank you very much, mate. James is saying he's home from work, washed up, going to get some spray down on a few pieces of terrain. James said, anyone played the Dune board game? I love Dune, but not sure. I've never played it, mate. Don't know anything about the board game, to be fair. Right, what's those things on his shoulders? Let's have a look and see what they are on the images here. Oh, they've painted them gold on that. Let's go with golden. Mark's saying he's looking like a pirate Santa. He is a bit, mate, but I'm alright with that. Let's see what we'll do. We're going to paint, I think we'll get this skull here, and we'll highlight back up from this. And I think we're at a point where we're probably going to put a wash over the top of it now. Pirate Santa. It's because there's still a lot of white. I think I'm going to do his beard black, to be fair, which will change it a bit. So yeah, that'll kind of tone down the pirate look, the Pirate Santa look, I think. VJ's time to go. Take care, mate. Nice to have you in. Jim said, I didn't realise new Dune game is by Direwolf. I love Eternal, and I heard people really like Clank. Clank's meant to be pretty good, mate. Yeah, I don't know much about Eternal, but I've heard good things about Clank. So, Luke says, what made you start with this fella then, mate? Do you know what it is, mate? I think it was purely just, I just wanted something relatively simple just to kick it off with. It's a bigger sort of, it's a nice big chunky one. I've primed them all, kind of ready to go. They're all at that kind of Zenithal primed stage. I think it was just pure kind of pure look, really, mate. Could have been anyone. They're all nice minis, to be fair. So yeah, I showed a few of them off at the start of the stream, basically just to kind of show people the quality of the minis and things. But yeah, it essentially could have been anyone. I think I'll have to try and get a little bit more in the red down his back there as well. Peter said I had a different experience at a con. A guy had an amazing looking medieval knights in terrain, and always had a soft spot for that period watching films. Spent half an hour chatting to them to find out the models were from a third party and the terrain from another. The gameplay was rubbish, so I felt a bit sorry but didn't buy the rulebook. That's the thing, isn't it? You once you've kind of, it's a weird feeling because it's a very personal experience that once you decide to sit down and have a demo with somebody, sometimes you can tell very, very quickly that this game is not for you, and there's no easy way to say that I'm not enjoying this. Thanks for your time, but I'm gonna leave it there. And that can be quite a hard thing to have to tell somebody, especially when you're sitting down with the creator of a game. But I'm sure they'd rather know that and get that time back to try and pitch to somebody else. But yeah, it's not always an easy thing to say. Nah, I'm not a big fan of your game, really. Phil says you like some big and chunky. James, I got very excitable carnivore pitch from a chap at Beachhead. He put on a voice when he told me the law. Nice one. It seemed to have worked, mate. You seemed interested in it anyway. So maybe you did a good job of it. Right, is he supposed to have bones or something in that? No, I think we're going to have silver spikes on it. Looks like I have a board game initially that seemed like a bad game because the person demo just did such a bad job. I've had others though sell it perfectly. Do you know what, mate? I wanted to have a try of the Fallout board game. I think it's by Fantasy Flight. And at UK Games Expo, I sat down to have a demo of it. And the guy that was supposed to be demoing it to us obviously had never played the game before. Kind of made a few rules up just to kind of to try and get us started. and then essentially walked away and left us to get on with it. And it was like, oh, okay, thanks very much. Like I was trying to get somebody to show me how to play this. That's meant to be your job, mate, and that's what you're here for. But yeah, so we ended up just wrapping it and just walking off basically. And sadly, it kind of we then never had a good demo of it, so I never got to try the game. And it was more my son's a big Fallout fan, so we wanted to try it for him really. Tony's saying, yeah, there's an art to demoing games. There certainly is, mate. James saying they had an amazing game board for Carnival, all the canals and models perched on the roofs. Yeah, to be honest, mate, the terrain is half the reason I'm interested in that game. It does look fantastic. It feels like, from what I can kind of gather, it feels like it should have the kind of the feel of Warcry, with that kind of like jumping around from building to building and climbing up walls and kind of wall running and stuff. It feels like it should have that feel to the game, but I've got no idea if that's the actual case or not. Right, where are we up to here then? I think we've got, I need to do a little bit, I need to do something with that case on his back. So I think we'll get a lighter brown, I think. In fact, no, just what we're going to do, we're going to put a bit of contrast paint in that. Let's go with the gold grunter brown. Tasty Brain Drinks, and yeah, Fallout board game is pretty good. I'd heard it was I'd heard that it was, mate, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to try it. And unfortunately, the guy whose job it was to try and teach it and try and sell me it didn't have a clue what he was doing. But rather than saying, I'm really sorry, mate, they've put me on this stand and I don't know how to play this game, he basically just he kind of read the rule book out to us aloud to get some things on the board, and then basically wandered off, like, rather than actually saying that I'll get somebody else. So yeah, there is a skill to demoing games, but the one of them skills is you need to know how to play it. There's also a fine balance between being enthusiastic and being a little bit annoying as well, which is something that if you've ever been to a Games Workshop store, you'll know only too well. There's a real balance to being kind of enthusiastic and being over enthusiastic, especially when we all know there are a lot of introverted sort of folks in our hobby, and there's nothing puts introverts off more than over enthusiastic folks. Luke's saying, yeah, people volunteer for demoing when they're doing it just for the free ticket and really have no business showing anyone how to play a game. It's a shame, as they can really impact your opinion. It's the reason why things like kind of like influencer marketing is a huge business, because the ones that do it right can sell sort of snow to the Eskimos basically. That's why. Tracy Brainchain saying, yeah, it is Fantasy Flight. Yeah, excuse to have that table. That's exactly what we're talking about, Luke, wasn't it? Tony says, Czech Games use Paul Grogan's demoing method, and their demo teams are top notch. Give them a go next time you get a chance. I think, mate, that Paul Grogan works for Czech Games, or he certainly has a lot to do with them, not just demoing. So let's tidy up these last few bits here. Right, it's about as sort of tidy as it's going to get before the wash goes on it, and then we highlight it up from that. So Luke says, really like new camera angle, catches your good side. It's because, mate, because I mean, you can see how close to the wall I am here, so I couldn't have the camera in front of me like I do when I have it at the table. But yeah, it's just off to the side, mate, because you'll see when I do my studio tour thing that I keep saying I'll do. Now that I'm starting to get the cables in the right length and stuff like that, it's not like I'm dancing around with cables and stuff now. I've got a bit of space to actually work here now. So yeah, we'll get to that bit. Right. We'll let that dry a little bit, and then we'll get the liquid talent of the Agrax out. Barry's saying there was a Fantasy Flight Fallout game. The miniature game is from Modifius Games, though. Great minis, complicated but fun. Yeah, it was the board game I was getting the demo of, mate. The Fallout miniatures game, for whatever reason, never really appealed to me. Peter says never had a demo game in his life. When YouTube back reps became a thing, the number of games I got in tripled. I've had loads of demo games when I've been to kind of conventions and stuff like that. Yogam's saying Carnival has some Warcry field with damage for falling, but you can also get a bonus for attacking from above. I like you to throw an opponent off a roof or into the canal. Yeah, that sounds pretty fun, mate. Luke says, have you got the camera looking at the miniature in between you and the table? Or are you sort of reaching around it? I have, mate. Basically, it's in front of my chest here. You can't see it here because of the way the lens is on the camera. But yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take a picture of it and I'll put it in the Discord group, and then you can see how it is. So there you go. Oh, actually, what I'll do is I'll just show you the picture. So that's how it looks. So basically, I've got the camera on a what they call those mechanical arm things, basically clamped to the desk in front of me. So it means I've got like my legs are free underneath it. I'm basically just sitting with my arms either side of it, basically. So that's how it is. Tasty Brain Drain says, I'm a tabletop gaming director for an anime con. Unfortunately, I've not had that many people who do that. And those that were quickly spotted and never recruited again. I think in the UK, Fantasy Flight, like Asmodee, have a massive big like demo team. And I don't know if they're all kind of like, if they're all new or they're all vetted or whatever it is. Peter, I usually have such a huge buy list when I go to a local convention. There's hardly any room for new unplanned stuff. Mark was saying Paul Grogan's rewriting Gotham City Chronicles rulebook for season 3. That's promising. Yeah, I saw that, mate. Marcus actually played one of the beta demos of X-Wing, and one of the rule sets they had in mind was complicated. Interesting. Right, is that dry enough to get a wash on there now? Simon Dave's off. Cheers for the stream, and he says, thank you very much, mate. Excuse me. Right, let's see if we can get some shade on this now. Right, which brush am I going to use for this? I think we'll just use this one. Right. Here's where the bottle of liquid talent comes out. We're just going to wash that down now. I always like to kind of, I know it's kind of basic, basically it's that kind of base coat and wash. It's such a basic way to do stuff, but I just love the way it just pulls everything together. It gives you the recesses, it darkens down. If you've missed any bits and you've got like light base, like sort of primer or anything like that, it'll just darken them bits down. It just pulls everything together a little bit, and then you can kind of highlight up from there as well. So yeah, it just pulls out some of the details and things as well. So I'm sure that there'll be people looking at me going, oh, what's he doing? But yeah, it doesn't bother me. Lord Maiden, hello mate. Saying he's lost his game. Lost his game of Malifaux, Lucius versus the Vix. Although I remember playing against the Vix, mate. Yeah, very tricky. Peter saying, yeah, I do the same. Agrax is great. It definitely is, fella. It definitely is. Luke saying it'll be the third attempt at writing that shit show of a rule book. Great game, but bloody hell, they buggered up aspects of it. Do you know what it is? Like the game itself is actually pretty decent. I quite like the game. It just took, like, it took too much working it out. I mean, there's definitely got to be some kind of sort of translation issue in it, because I think it's obviously it's converted from French over into English. So there's got to be something lost in translation a little bit. So I do have some sympathy for them, but like that's just a money issue. Like there are people that you can pay, as they obviously are now, to make sure that that's not a problem. But you're right, this is the third time they've had a go at it. The amount of symbols in that game is a bit of an issue. However, it's like a lot of games. You don't need every symbol for every game. And the way the book is laid out, it makes it feel very, very confusing. And actually, in reality, it isn't that confusing. But the way the book's laid out makes you feel like it's more complex than it is. I think we're going to do his trousers white, folks, which is why I haven't painted them. So, Luke's saying the river system for Conan and Batman is borderline genius and such a great game for scenario-focused gameplay. But would a player aid be such a hard thing to produce? Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who it is. There's somebody did one on Board Game Geek. Did kind of Batman player aids, and even Monolith was kind of like recommending people download and print them off, which is stupid. To then not include them in version 2 as well was unforgivable after they were saying about how good they were. It's just madness. But yeah, it's an interesting game, mind. Yeah, there's obviously there's a really good game in there that's kind of let down by a really bad rule book, and that is such a shame. Unfortunately, that they're not alone in that. There's a few games that have that issue. Looks like I print off all sorts of stuff to help with Batman. It was not such an issue with Conan. There's hardly any symbols. Yeah, there are a lot of symbols in the Batman game, aren't there? And like I say, you don't need them all. Even if those symbols had been split up into by character, because there are some symbols that are only on one character card. You don't need to know them all. That's the problem. All right, I think that's probably bathed the whole thing. I'm going to go around and take some of that off where it's been pooling a little bit. We'll clean some of those areas up a touch. So, smooth some of them bits out. White trousers, very night fever. He's a pirate, mate. He's been an officer at some point, and he's diverted to the other side. Luke's saying, yeah, I print off a few things for Rightbusters. Again, no partner aids and still none coming in the errata pack. Do you know what it is? That just sounds very mythic, unfortunately, doesn't it? I wonder if there's any surprise. I wonder if it's like linked to the fact that both Mythic and Monolith have had these issues. I mean, thankfully with Super Fantasy Brawl, the rules are so straightforward. It doesn't need that, and also the rules were obviously written by the team in the UK, or they were kind of reproduced by the team in the UK, so there's no kind of translation issue, I don't think. Dom saying, if you could design a game, what type of game would it be? I've spoke about this before, mate. I'd quite like to do a kind of like a cabin in the woods type game, where basically like kind of random monsters would come up to fight you, and you would play the team of kind of like the teenagers coming to stay in this cabin in the woods, and the game, the AI for the game would basically play these kind of monsters that come up, and you can play it cooperatively. or you could play it almost like sacrificing your fellow players to help save yourself. I think if I was going to design a game, that's something I would try to incorporate. I think I like that idea for a game. I've probably just sold my idea now. Coming soon to Kickstarter before anybody else jumps on the bandwagon. Colosseum Mythic Battles Pantheon has a similar thing, but you can get by with a reference sheet. Yeah. Looks like I'm playing Super Fantasy Brawl tomorrow night and Sunday night. It's going to be a bloody good weekend. Oh, playing games, mate. I'm jealous. Lucian, do you see which character you like the look of at first glance? I really like Nevermore, mate. I just there's something about that character that I like. I'll just pull some of this out. Marcuson, I only knew about the Conan game was when I walked by two guys playing and one of them rolled and the wizard exploded into a demon. It made me do a double take. Probably says, that sweet city woman, she moves through the light, controlling my mind and my soul. When you reach out for me, yeah, I know the feeling is right. I didn't immediately put two and two together there, mate, when I first started reading it. Lord Maiden says, now you've hit 1 million views, what's your next view goal? I don't really have another view goal now, mate, to be fair. I'd like to hit 10,000 subscribers just because it's nice to see that I've kind of done that. But after that, mate, to be honest, my goals now is more about growing the Patreon, really, because that's what pays my wages. I could have 1 million subscribers and 10 million views, but if I don't grow my Patreon to pay the bills, then I won't be able to continue to do this. So that's my goal, really. I'd like to get to. I think if I can get to 200 Patreons, I think that'll make this long-term sustainable. I'm at like 108 now, so I've obviously got a little bit of a way to go there. But yeah, if I can just keep growing it month on month, like 150 Patreons would probably be my next little kind of personal goal. Because I think once I get to that level, then I think I can stop worrying about have I made the right decision. Because obviously, like, I still have to earn a wage from this, and at the minute, obviously, the savings that I put in place and kind of and everything else is obviously bumping that up at the minute. So yeah, growing the Patreon, mate, is rather than views is my ultimate goal. So we'll let him dry out a little bit. Carrie says, love that you read that out. Because I just read everything, mate, until it suddenly dawns on me what you've written. Tony saying, I miss Az from Mythic. Yeah, he's with Lucky Duck Games now, mate. I don't know if you knew that. Simon Morton, hello, mate. He says, is Conan any good? My King Pledge is still sitting in the back of the cupboard unopened. I think Conan's meant to be a pretty decent game. One of the problems was that basically when they went to retail with it, it was just too expensive, I think. Because that's why when they made Batman, let me just flick over to the screen for a bit while I was drawing. When they made Batman, which basically is like a slightly improved version of the Conan system, they never went to retail with it. They knew it was always going to be Kickstarter only. Peter says, does anyone have Tail Feathers by Plaid Hat? I have one of the birds and riders on my painting tray. Gorgeous minis. I've never even heard of it, mate, if I'm honest. Tasty Brain Drain said, I like the idea for a board game. I'd definitely be interested in giving it a try. I'm not really I've never really had any aspirations to write a board game or write a kind of miniatures game, but I think it gives an opportunity to come up with some kind of neat ideas. I think maybe if I ever get time, I might try and put something down on paper. Luke says, yeah, he's my favourite one too. Looks badass. I like the style of the plant woman in the expansion box too. Really dynamic. Yeah, I can't remember what she's called. Is it Lorelei or something? I think she's called. Which I think is this one. Let me flick back to it. So, yeah, this is the one that Luke's talking about. The kind of, let me zoom in a bit. This kind of plant woman here. She's pretty cool. The one I was just talking about was Nevermore, which is, if I can see it. There he is, right at the front. Very. He's got kind of like a skeleton bird on his head there, and kind of like some kind of like smoke and stuff billowing up from the bottom. I really like that. Looking forward to painting that one, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to dive in and do it first. I forget what this one's called, but this kind of phoenix. I'm looking forward to kind of painting some nice oranges and browns and reds on this one. Which other ones? I would say this one is probably my least favourite. I'm not so keen on this kind of like leg coming around the front. It's a bit of a weird pose. I think that's my least favourite one, but it's still nice. And I like this model as well. This kind of like snake lady with a kind of like Japanese mask. It's pretty nice as well. I like that one. So, I love that you read that out. Thanks, mate. Pomsy said, "Is this one mini painted during the whole evening? Normally bash through a couple more than that. Interesting." I've been painting really slow tonight, mate. I think I've just been chatting more than normal, really. That's what I've just been there. Just been taking my time. It does look a bit Santa Claus now, to be fair. Luke's saying, yeah, Az is literally one of the nicest people you'll ever come across in the industry. Don't lie to him in games of a mouse, though. Yes, definitely, mate. Peter says, the minis would really fit birds and badgers. Are there rules for mounts in there? It's a mouse knight riding a bird. There are rules for mounts, I think, in birds and badgers. Yeah, I think there is. Krabby says, random question, is 00 gauge or 00 gauge, sorry, a good match for 28mm? I'm not sure, mate. I can never remember when it comes to gauges for what they call for model railway gauges. So, folks, while I'm just having a bit of a quick drink, anybody new to the chat, anybody first time here, if you're not a subscriber, please do consider subscribing to the channel. I'm well on my way to almost at 9,000 subscribers now. It'd be nice to get some new subscribers in as well. And if you're kind of, you know, if you've maybe been here a little while, you might not know that basically this is my full-time job now. This is what I do for a living, and basically in order to mean that I don't do sponsored videos, so all my opinions are my own. I'm not paid to do kind of any content for anything. It's all funded through kind of Patreon and buying t-shirts and all that kind of stuff, and donations for the stream. So if you are interested in making sure that this kind of continues in the future, please do just check out my Patreon. That's all I ask. Thank you very much. People having a bit of a chat there with different gauges there. Christian just sharing the link there at the Patreon. Thanks, mate. Cheers. O gauge. I can never remember what the different gauges are, but different stuff. Can never remember. Luke says, Christian, hot on the link. He's got them all saved. There's just cut and paste. He does an absolute stellar job. Absolute stellar job. He's a legend. Kerry Rivers, hello Kerry, saying OO gauge is 15mm, I think. I tell you what, I'm gonna have to Google it now. What gauge is it? Where is it? 28mm gauge in railway. Let's try that. O gauge, mate, it says. It says 28mm war game scale railway conversion to O gauge. O gauge track. Yeah, so basically a 6-foot man is 28mm tall. The scale you use is 1/64. There you go. That should. O gauge. There you go. Seems to be O gauge, mate. Crowley said that's why he's doing loads of different answers. Luke said, I have Googled those scale comparisons so many times and I can never remember. Same with the 1/72. Yeah, lots of answers, but I'm usually correct. I think when I was looking for Star Wars Legion stuff to get like scale models of like the ships and stuff, I think about 150, anywhere between about 156 and 170 would roughly kind of fit, I think. Nice one, nice one. So, how's this drying out? Let's flick back to this one so you can kind of see how we're going. So what I'll do once this is dried out, I don't think I'm going to get this one any further, is obviously all this red needs highlighting up, all this silver needs kind of dry brushing with like a Necron, what's it called again? Necron compound, to really kind of brighten that up a little bit. We'll do the beard. I think the beard's going to be black, otherwise he does look a little bit Santa Claus, but I am going to give him white trousers. And I'll kind of highlight up this bone stuff on his belt and stuff as well. And then the base I'm probably going to do kind of just like a beigey sandy looking base with a little bit of kind of tufts of grass and stuff coming through. But it's coming there. It's coming. What kind of stuff are you looking for, Krabby, on eBay? I know it'll be for your terrain thing, but what is it that you're looking to buy, mate? I'm relatively happy how this is coming along. Be nice just to get these all painted up at some point. There's a lot to do, like, unfortunately, and I've still got my god tier stuff on the paint table as well. But thankfully, actually, I think that's pretty much it, to be fair, at the minute. Luke saying, do you think either of your boys will enjoy Super Fantasy Brawl? I think so, mate. I think Adam potentially doesn't play a lot of tabletop games, but he's a big fan of League of Legends, and because this was originally meant to be League of Legends, it might be like the theme of it might be enough to kind of just get him to try it out. And the fact that it's relatively simple, there's no dice, there's no deck building, you just pick 3 models, or you can or doing the draft as well, like the pick and ban stuff might be right up his street. So yeah, I think we'll give it a try. I think my missus will try it as well. Obviously, she's been playing quite a lot of stuff with me through lockdown as well. So yeah, we'll get some games in. Tracks and cargo carts, wagons and trucks. Have you thought about the the tracks that you get for the servo hauler stuff? Some of the actual GW stuff. Can you pick any of that up? I think it was last month's White Dwarf had like a railway track in it. And what they'd been using some of the 40k terrain stuff. Peter saying that war bases have them in MDF. Yeah, MDF would actually probably work alright as well, wouldn't it? Scott saying cheap Christmas train tracks. Yeah, I remember somebody else telling me about that. There used to be a particular train that everybody bought, it was one of those trains that go around the bottom of a Christmas tree, and it was like a perfect scale for miniature gaming. I forget which one it was now. And Sarissa. Crowley said I was going to attempt to convert them into hover stuff like repulsors. Ah, nice one, mate. Nick Peterson, I found certain models vehicles particularly even fit 40k, even their scale is a bit larger. Yeah, I think you can kind of get away with it, really, can't you? As long as it's not like massively out of scale. It's just kind of like, they're bigger tracks. This is in the 41st millennium. Whoops, sorry. This is in the 41st millennium. Who's to say that train tracks didn't get bigger then? Who's to say it wasn't completely different? Just having a quick look in here now. So I've got millions of stuff coming through. What's all this stuff? See if we got anybody joining the Facebook group. We'll get them. We'll get them put in. Anybody waiting to join? There's one here. There we go. We've got them in now as well. Luke said he bought a toy train for his Wild West game. Once I painted up, I was so happy with it. It fit perfectly. It's amazing what you can do with just kind of like weathering them, or just dry brushing them and weathering them a little bit. Well, folks, I think I'm going to call it a night there. What time is it? We're 11:15 now. I think I'll call it there. I'll crack on with this probably. Maybe it's not tomorrow because I'm doing a bit more editing tomorrow. I'll tell you what I will do while we're sitting. Let me get the statues and I'll show you the statues I've done. So. You'll be pleased to know that that farting noise wasn't me. It was the box. So let's get these statues out. Let me get a bit of space on my desk here. So these are the statues that I've been painting, and I've recorded the whole process for these. So I've kind of edited the video. I need to do the voiceover now for it. So that's what my plan is to have that done tomorrow. So yeah, so this is these are the statues that I did. That's the blue one, and let me just get the other ones out. The red one. Dom Symes, what's the Facebook page called? It is called BlackJack Legacy Tabletop Gaming Community, I think it is. If you type in BlackJack Legacy, you should find the community group, mate. There's the red one here. I forget what their names are. Thank you very much, Christian, for sharing the link there. So this is the red one. And then this is the yellow one. So tomorrow you should see the video for this, which is basically how to paint them. It took me about I would say probably about an hour to an hour and a half or something like that to get these all done. But yeah, super quick. Look really nice on the tabletop as well, rather than that kind of like white plastic. Somebody was asking about how wobbly they are. You can see that one's not too bad. That one's pretty steady as well. This one has a very slight rock, but nothing. It's nowhere near as bad as kind of what some other people have had and stuff. They're pretty flat, and like I say, once they're on that neoprene mat, it kind of takes them up. So, Lucy, night all, glad you caught the end of the stream. What do I think of the box? I love all the game trays, but it's a lot of wasted space. It does seem like a bit of a wasted space, mate, but I've got that felled hair case coming, so to be honest, by the time that comes, it'll probably all just go in there anyway. Tony says he's going to have another go at marble for the statues. Yeah, I've got two sets of the statues. I think when I ordered them, I forgot they came in the box, and I thought they were an optional extra. So I've got two sets of the statues. So I might try and do the other ones in a different way. So anyway, I think that's where I'll wrap it up now. I just want to show you them, and that's what's coming up. Either like tomorrow if I get it finished. If not, it'll be Friday's video. But yeah, it's coming up soon. So thank you every single one of you for coming in. Really do. Just reading Krabby there. If you hot glue the bottom of that and squash the glue onto some baking paper, it'll solve your problem. The problem I've got, mate, is if I go back, that's what the bottoms are like. They're kind of hollow, mate. So, but it's, to be honest, I think they're slightly warped. So I think with a little bit of heat, they'll just kind of bend back into place. It's not a massive problem though, because once it's on the neoprene mat, it almost kind of takes it up. Either that, or I'll just very lightly sand down the high points or something. Right, folks. Thanks again, and I will see you in next Monday's live stream. Take care. Thanks very much for coming in. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.